All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. The date is December 12th. The time is 3:03. With us today, we have Alderman Tolliver, Alderwoman Bade, Alderman Warman, Alderman Bug, and myself, Alderman Franco. First item of business is 24-0945, approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on November 27, 2024. We have a motion by Alderwoman Bade, second by Alderman Warman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Public comment. I saw a number of people sign up. Is there anybody here who signed a sheet for public comment that is on the agenda? If you raise your hand. All right, one. Is there anybody here for pure public comment? Because sometimes we get a little bit confused with that. All right, so we have nobody for public comment. Sometimes people sign up and they're on the agenda, they don't need to. I just want to make sure we got that cleared up. All right, with that being said, we're going to go a little bit out of order. We're going to take...
Chair.
Sorry.
For the record, we still have to ask them. You could speak in public comment and also be on the agenda. So they have to...
I think I did that. Does anybody here wishing to speak for public comment? All right. Let's go to 24-0870. It's a resolution authorizing a one-year extension of an agreement with Marquardt and Humes for the governmental affairs consulting services of Scott Marquardt and John Chip Humes.
Good afternoon, Finance Committee. Alex Boyd from the Mayor's Office. Before you have one of two requests to extend agreements with our government relations that we've been working with. We've been working with Scott Marquardt since 2022. In 2024, he took on a partner formally, John Chip Humes. Some staff has worked with Chip. Chip has worked with Scott for many years, and now he is a partner in the firm, so there is a name change. Other than that, we are not requesting any changes to the agreement per se. We're very happy with their services and looking forward to another year with them.
Questions or comments from the committee? So we have a motion by Alderwoman Bay. Do we have a second? Oh, I'm sorry, you had a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alderwoman
Thank you,
Bay.
Chairman. Alex, could you go over some of the things that they brought us this year for
Sure.
the City of Aurora?
Sure. So in the 2024 year, we did not take forward any independent legislation drafted by the City of Aurora as we did in 2023. 2024, we really focused on being, I'll say, as nimble as we could when it came to dealing with the impacts of decisions made at the state level. We were very engaged in the conversations regarding increasing the city's LGDF, the Local Government Distributive Fund. We did receive a small increase in that arena. We were very involved in pending legislation, whether it be sitting down with legislators and discussing bills that would impact the city, being involved in some of the negotiations of those bills. In terms of Scott and Chip, they worked closely on helping Aurora access funds allocated through the state budget. And some of those funds, and we did have the opportunity to meet with some of the aldermen yesterday, some of those funds are grants that came to us directly from the legislators, grants that we've applied for, and sometimes it takes quite a bit of time at the state level, so we rely on our government relations folks to assist us in, I like to say, shaking the money loose, as it were. They also worked with us in sitting down and connecting with individuals from the state agencies. Public Works, for example, we use them in connecting with IDOT. They helped us with some fire department matters. So it's really run the gamut this year. It's been a lot of connecting and a lot of networking in terms of their supporting our needs in communicating with the state in terms of accomplishments.
Any other questions or comments for the committee? We have a motion by Alderwoman Bay, second by Alderman Warman. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next item will be, we'll skip to 24-0937, a resolution authorizing a one-year extension of an agreement with Vision MAI LLC for the governmental affairs consulting services of Bokula Bello.
Yes, and Bukola is the city's other government relations representative. She's worked with us since 2020. And again, we're very happy with her services and looking forward to another year and working with her. In terms of some of the specifics, Bucola was instrumental in the 4 pieces of legislation that I spoke about from 2023. And they may have been passed in 2023, but the legwork really occurred in 2024. So she did a lot of the work in that arena, specifically with the city's limestone bill and the Environmental Protection Agency. She's been our main point of contact. She also did work in terms of coordinating city council members' visits with legislators when you've gone down for lobby day. She made those connections for everyone. And similar to Scott, representing the city at hearings, connecting us with the state agencies, and really any time we have a need to connect with the state in any way, shape, or form. We have 2 great representatives.
Questions or comments about that? Hearing none, do we have a motion? We have a motion by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Warman. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 24-0964, an ordinance providing for the issue of not to exceed $40 million of general obligation bonds of the city for the purpose of financing certain capital improvements, providing for the levy of taxes to pay the bonds, and authorizing the sale of bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Minnick, Chief Financial Officer and City Treasurer. Enclosed in your packets this afternoon is an ordinance that authorizes the issuance of bonds in an amount not to exceed $40 million for the 2025 General Obligation Bond Series A and B. This particular bond series these bonds would be issued in 2 series. Number 2025A series is tax exempt and will be utilized for various general infrastructure projects as contemplated and approved in the 2025 city's budget. And the 2025B series is a taxable bond issue and would be utilized for the purchase of the parking garage adjacent to the existing casino site, also known as the Valet Garage, as well as reimbursement for the construction of Stolp Island Theater and the Promenade Walkway rehabilitation. As the council may recall, this is actually phase 1 of the sustainability plan that the city entered into with ACA a little bit earlier this fall. The 2025A series, as mentioned, is for general infrastructure improvements and primarily will fund the initial and beginning construction costs for 3 projects. Fire stations 9 and 13, also initial construction costs for the River Edge Park expansion project, and initial construction costs and final design costs for the Bilter roadway improvements. The ordinance that's included is known as a parameters ordinance. It does authorize the issuance of the bonds without further city council action, so long as certain parameters are met at the time of the sale. The parameters are typically set wide enough for the bond sale to allow for changes in market conditions over the next several weeks. Several weeks, and it does authorize staff to proceed with the bond sale, assuming that the parameters of the ordinance are met. And the ordinance further provides, in providing some safeguards for the city, it does provide that the bond sale shall only proceed if the city's financial advisor indicates that the sale is fair and reasonable in light of current market conditions. The total amount of the bonds issued will not exceed $40 million, and the exact par amount will be determined at the time of the bond sale and will be determined and dependent on market conditions. The current timeline does call for the sale of the bonds and the closing to occur in the January-February 2025 timeframe. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions. This bond issue was contemplated as part of the approval of the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Warman, second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item is 24-0909, a resolution authorizing the city to accept a grant award of $48,766.90 from fiscal year 25 Illinois Department of Transportation Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Andy Walcott from the Aurora Police Department. I'm here seeking acceptance of the grant for $48,000, $766.90 for the IDOT Sustained Traffic Enforcement Grant. This is a grant that allows us to hire officers back on overtime to do dedicated traffic enforcement.
Questions or comments about this? I do have a comment. Good. Because we know that traffic enforcement, if we have one complaint that's constant every day of the year, it's pretty much traffic. So thank you for doing that. I've talked to Lieutenant Corrigan and some stuff, and so we really are doing a very good job in that. So we do appreciate the effort to have these special units and then the funding to support them too.
And this grant is 4 times what almost 5 times what we've got in the past from the state. And so it gives us 234 hours for specific campaigns related to distracted driving, speed enforcement, major holidays. But it also gives us, this year we took advantage of, they have 232 hours of overtime enforcement for additional enforcement as we have problems around the city where if it's one of the fatal 5, speeding, seatbelt, DUI, distracted driving, and improper lane usage, we can send officers out on this under this grant and target it right away. So.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Questions or comments? Motion approved by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is 24-0929, a resolution authorizing the purchase of 3 replacement fleet vehicles from Curry Motors for $134,529.
Good afternoon, Chris Linville, Superintendent of Fleet Operations. Unfortunately, these vehicles were totaled and we are looking to replace them. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Questions or comments from the committee? So as we know, sometimes we try to always get the most appropriate, sustainable, green type of vehicles. And I see that we get one is a hybrid?
All 3 will be hybrids.
All but 3 will be hybrids, okay. And I'm guessing that we don't buy, I'm putting it out there, we don't get electric because it's not quite what we can use or the availability or the whole problem.
They don't even have them for these
They don't have them for
particular
that, okay,
models.
good. We just basically making sure. Okay, questions or comments about that? We have a motion to.
Second.
Motion approved by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass 5-0. Thank you. Next item is 24-0934, resolution authorizing Trotsky Investigative Polygraph Incorporated as a provider for services of pre-employment polygraph assessments through December 31st, 2024.
Good afternoon, Alicia Lewis, Chief Human Resources Officer. We're at a point, again, every year we come to council for approval to pay the bills for Trotsky. Trotsky is our vendor that does our polygraphs for our public safety, for our public safety employees that go through either a pre-hiring or moving into position as a current employee. So that is one of the requirements for these positions is that they pass a polygraph. So we're just asking for approval to pay the bills.
Okay. Do we know how much over we're going to be? Approximately?
We haven't even, we're just now getting to 50,000, so.
Not a whole lot over?
So I don't know
Right.
how much more over,
Right.
but it won't be.
But yeah, by the end of the year, probably not a whole lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments?
Can you please share it with us once you have the numbers?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you. Motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion approved by Alderman Warman, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 24-0935, a resolution superseding all previous resolutions pertaining to and amending pay plans for employees in the executive pay plan.
So every year, Human Resources puts through the pay plans for the non-exempt. We're doing the executive pay plan first, and that will reflect the cost of living increase for the next year, as well as any position changes. And it's basically the Bible for our executives in terms of the benefits. So you'll see in this upcoming year 2025, it reflects the 4% increase that council has already approved. In addition, there's some cleanup language. One of the highlights here is that we are increasing our maternity benefit. We want to stay competitive with other organizations and other municipalities. In the past, we have given 10 days of maternity leave, and we are increasing that to 1 month. Any questions?
I had one question I'm looking at the scheduled position grades, police differential change from commander to deputy chief. So we have a deputy chief.
Correct.
So I'm not sure I follow that. What are we doing with that one there?
So in order to keep equity between the positions, starting with our frontline staff, there is a differential between each position. And so right now there is a 4% differential between the deputy chief and the chief of police. So we're increasing that, again, to maintain equity. You'll also see that that same differential is on the fire side. And so we're trying to get us to a more equitable position internally as well as externally.
So you're talking deputy chief versus chief? And
So-
because this is commander to deputy chief. That's why I wasn't following. So you have your commanders, you have
I'm
your
sorry,
deputy chief, and you have your chief.
yes,
Okay.
commander too. So it's commander to deputy chief. We're increasing from 4.5% to 8%.
Okay, so the differential
I'm sorry.
between those two because
Yes.
okay, all right, I just want to make sure. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Alderman Bug.
Thank you. You mentioned the extension of maternity, which I'm sure the employees will appreciate. What, if any, paternity leave is there right now?
Is it 5 days? 6 days. And that, yes. So right now, paternity is 6 days, and we had increased that we gave an increase last year for paternity, up to 6 days.
Okay.
I think it was 3 days?
We went from 3 to 6 last year?
I believe so.
Okay.
Was it 3 or 5? 5? Okay, I get 2. 5 to 6.
5 to 6?
Yes.
Okay. And how does that play out with other municipalities? If we're going to 30, which is excellent for maternity, how does 6 days for paternity compare to some of our others?
Yeah, some municipalities don't do a paternity, but I can do a survey. I think we're fairly equitable on the paternity side. We're a little low on the maternity, but we want to do it in baby steps. So. But I can get you some data for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bay.
Second.
Second by Alderman Bug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next one is 24-0936, a resolution superseding all previous resolutions pertaining to and amending pay plans for employees in the non-exempt pay plan.
Again, this is for the same foundation. This is our pay plan for our non-exempt employees. Those are our hourly employees. You'll see a 4% cost of living increase, again, reflected in this pay plan as approved by council. We have also made the same changes for maternity leave in the non-exempt pay plan. And then again, you'll see the changes in some of the cleanup language in addition to positions that council has already approved through the budget.
Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bay, second by Alderman Warman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is 24-0944, a resolution authorizing purchasing of property, boiler machinery, fine arts, cyber and excess cyber liability, crime, special events liability, drone liability, general liability slant law enforcement, slant auto liability, excess workers' compensation, and liquor liability insurance policies for the period of December 31st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025.
Good afternoon, Alex Alexandru, Chief Management Officer.
Deb Lang, Assistant Corporation Counsel.
We're also joined by Stephen Morcos from Hub, as well as my friend Walter. I'm going to mess up your last name. In honor of Chris Kindlemarket, we have Mr. Braunschweig here. So thank you. So there are brokers. Once again, this is our annual renewal of the city's overall insurance package. That includes all of those things that you so eloquently stated, Mr. Chairman. But most significantly is the $35 million umbrella that we carry. And so, as you know, our budget is about $729 million.
60.
And so we are continuing to maintain the $35 million umbrella coverage. As you can see from the results, and Deb and Paola and the team have done an outstanding job this year in some difficult markets. I think nationwide, the excess liability market, I just read something today that was almost a 7% increase on average. So you can see the lion's share of the increases for our coverage was in those excess layers. But our team feels very strongly that the city needs to maintain that protection. We have been able to maintain our self-insured retention, our deductibles. But also, Deb, I think you want to talk a little bit about we did increase some things, and
We have increased in the past year the number of properties we have, as well as the total insured values of those properties have gone up 14.87%. We've had an increase on employees, as you can see. I think it's Exhibit A. Hub has provided us a great graphic where you can see the percentage increase. But our net total expenditures as a city has gone up 23%. So that it will change the amount of premiums, rates that we are receiving. As Alex pointed out on page 2, our layer towers, that is where the highest increase is from the years before. And as he explained, the market has become difficult with one of the major carriers exiting the market. Overall, we have been able to maintain the same companies except for the first layer of excess. We had 2 companies that left, and we have Arch replacing them for that first $5 million. With regards to drone liability, that has gone down, as well as our crime. Cyber, which we had typically seen an increase from year to year, we have a decrease in that same amount of coverage, but a decrease in the premium rates. And overall, you can see, and I'm not good at math, but a 23% increase in the total annual cost. I did place in the memo the previous year's amount, so you can see it's pretty similar to what we've seen. And as Alex has said, and I think our hub brokers would explain, this is still very competitive based on the market issues. And as we also know, municipalities have been hit pretty badly with severe weather. So that is taken into account with these excess layers that other municipalities in the south have had to reach into.
And to bring it back to the city, thankfully, knock on wood, our experience has been terrific in terms of being able to avoid any catastrophic hits or anything going into the excess coverages. We expect that to continue, but we are protected in the event something happens beyond our control. And it's also, again, as Deb said, we have increased the values in some significant areas in terms of property and payroll and fleet. And so that is, the increase is to be expected. So if you back out the increase of the excess carriers, it's still a pretty competitive situation. So, so we are asking for approval of the 24-25 program as outlined.
Questions or comments from the committee? So I guess my question would be, because we want to make sure that we're in line with everybody else, similar municipalities probably are in the same boat where it's going up about that same percentage because we're all in this together type of thing? Was that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think I don't know that, we've strategically selected the 35 billion based on our budget and our exposures and the variety of things the city's exposed to. I don't know that a lot of municipalities have this sophisticated a stack, but I think the team we have in place now, the stable of attorneys who represent the city in all types of cases, do an excellent job. We have a new third-party administrator, CCMSI. We have everything lined up now. They're doing an outstanding job. We had a claims review yesterday. So I feel really good, and I've been doing this since I started. I mean, this is what I started with the city doing. So I don't think we have have ever had as good a team as we have right now, handling claims, defending the city, being proactive. Our employees, our department heads are doing a great job mitigating risk. PD and fire continue to train. So, I mean, we have a really good thing going. I'm knocking on wood, and hopefully we keep it going.
Well, all right, so that's great. Our team is doing a great job internally. So do our brokers see that we're doing such a good job avoiding risk that we give us a little bit more of a discount, or is that how
It's
that
not,
works?
I wish it was up to Hub, but we have an underwriter on the dais who can tell you that it really is.
Right, yeah.
They look at global risk
right.
and global market conditions and national conditions, and we happen to be buying in these markets that some of them have been hit very hard. I mean,
Right.
I spoke to somebody today who's down in Florida for a community that was on the Gulf. They're still reeling.
Sure.
And you know what's happening in Florida with insurance rates and lack of capacity, and towns are just scrambling. They just finished up a beachfront, and then it gets wiped out in the next storm.
Right.
So we should feel very fortunate. I mean, yes, we're in the Midwest. It was 4 degrees this morning, but.
But
you
no
know, at least-
hurricanes.
No
No
hurricanes,
hurricanes,
for
so I
sure.
guess,
no
right, so
hurricanes.
there's always a silver lining. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the
Yeah,
committee?
just
Alderman
comments.
Buggs? I know, come in next.
Yeah, I just want to say, no, this is, as far as the summaries that we're provided with, this is the best, more extensive summary that we've received in the past. So it kind of answers the questions for you, which is excellent. I think a little bit, I mean, the growth of our city, in a good way, outpaces many other cities. So, as Ms. Lang said, that's to be expected. I mean, I just made the call for one additional driver, my teenager, and I got that number back, and my head went crazy. So
you took the keys
if you
away.
put on 50 additional employees,
And you called Uber.
yeah.
Okay.
And you have 50 additional employees and everything that Ms. Ling laid out, you know, the numbers are going to be exponentially higher. So it seems like it's in line. Very well, job well done.
All credit goes to Ms. Lang, who wrote the memo. See, when you get a lawyer involved.
I was going to say, Hub gave us
Wow.
great information.
Thank you, Hub.
So everybody did their job.
Correct.
except the math part, which you did not do.
I
That's fine.
cannot do math.
We all have our fortes, that's
Right.
fine. Alderman Tolliver, go ahead.
Just a quick comment. First of all, I feel like the staff always does a great job, especially when it comes to the insurance stuff. I feel very comfortable with the 35 million umbrella, with all those access, how they're stacked like that. And just looking from an overall standpoint, I mean, again, as the underwriter, I mean, this is pretty much in line with the net increase itself being at a 23.88. I would feel comfortable with that on either side, the broker side or the underwriting side. So just overall, great job with everybody that was involved in it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion approved by Alderman Warman, second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. The next item is 0948, a resolution authorizing Director of Purchasing to enter into a new contractual agreement for the neighborhood project to continue as service partner to the Aurora Financial Empowerment Center through December 2025, and to allocate $201,845.04 of budgeted funds for the neighborhood project, with up to 2 one-year extensions for a total not to exceed $623,882.83.
Good afternoon, Martha Paschke, Director of Innovation and Strategy.
Tasha Moss, Program Manager, Innovation and Strategy.
So before you have a new contract for the provision of services at the Financial Empowerment Center. The Neighbor Project has been the provider of these services at the FEC since 2020, when the FEC first started. The city published an RFP this fall for those services, as is common practice over time, to refresh things. We also were looking to update contractual expectations to be more clear and to make some changes to address inefficiencies in the staffing model based on lessons learned over the last 4 years. Tasha Moss and I reviewed operations of FECs nationally to see what kinds of changes others have made over time in response to growth, as well as the need for improved efficiency. With the RFP published, we did receive 2 proposals. You may recall last week when we had a contractor here presenting about the Children's Savings Account, he did mention that his organization had replied to this RFP as well. So Operation Hope was the other proposer. Upon evaluation of the proposals, the Neighbor Project's bid was deemed the lowest responsible bid. It also met some important criteria that the other proposal did not meet for us. The significant changes or the notable changes in the updated or the new contract that you have before you represents a shift from having 2 program managers to having 1 program manager and a manager on the contractual side. That addresses some of the inefficiencies and clarification needed in the roles and responsibilities. There's a shift from 2.25 FTE financial coaches to 2 FTE. There's an inclusion of measurable KPIs for the financial coaches. There's updated language about additional tasks to be performed by the contractual staff. There's clarified language about roles in fundraising and grant applications. And there's clarified language about travel compensation to align with city policies. Just in considering this proposal, I feel it's probably good to look at the data on the Financial Empowerment Center and the services that have been provided over the last 4 years. And I know these numbers get repeated every once in a while, but I think it never hurts to bring them back to mind and the impact that the Financial Empowerment Center is having on the city. So total debt reduced for Aurora area residents since 2020 is over $3 million. Total savings increased is over $1 million. Total outcomes, and those outcomes are measured as either debt reduced, savings increased, credit score increased, or becoming banked if they were unbanked or underbanked.
Connecting to affordable and safe.
To affordable and safe
services.
banking services. Total outcomes is 2,553 since 2020. We've served over 2,000 clients since 2020 and had over 5,000 sessions total. So that is the new contract that's in front of you. I'm here to answer questions. Tasha can answer questions, and we have our friend Rick Guzman from the Neighbor Project here to answer questions as well.
Questions or comments from the committee? We have no questions or comments. You guys are doing a wonderful job. This is a great opportunity for the people in the city, and we appreciate the keeping this thing going forward and all the work you guys, put into this and looking for funding whenever you can. So thank you for that. Hearing no comments or questions, do we have a motion by
Second.
Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Tolliver? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
24-0949, a resolution establishing 2025 golf cart rates at Phillips Park Golf Course.
Good afternoon, Finance Committee. Jeff Schmidt, PGA Golf Operations Manager out at Phillips Park Golf Course. You have in front of you a request for resolution to establish the golf rates for the 2025 golf season. Just a few back notes here. The golf course has established a great reputation for providing great customer service, as well as offering the latest in golf course technology, as well as implementation of the Visage GPS system, Visage GPS golf system of the golf course about 2 to 3 years ago, which has been a great enhancement to the golf course. Our last rate change in golf carts came back in 2022. The increase in golf carts is going to help us offset some of the increasing costs that we face on a yearly basis on just maintaining the golf carts in our current fleet. The proposed golf cart rates will better position us against our competitors. And when we compared our rates against our nearby competitors, we're still the most competitive golf rate in the Fox Valley. At this time, I'll be available for any questions.
Questions or comments? I will say this, those carts now that you got, the new ones with all the bells and whistles, outstanding. As a golfer, outstanding.
Thank you.
And whether the rates are competitive with everybody around, doesn't matter because your carts are so much better. So we're getting a lot of bang for the buck. So thanks for upgrading that. It really makes a difference. And I
You're
love the
welcome.
speakers in there too.
Yes, those are
Very
great.
nice, very nice. Anything else?
Motion to.
We got a motion approved by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Orman. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Next item is 24-0963, resolution to authorize a 5-year agreement with Creative Planning Retirement Services at a total cost of $325,000 to perform 457B fiduciary and consulting services for the city's deferred compensation plans.
All right, sure. All right, good afternoon, Chairman, committee members. Dan Ferguson, Accounting Manager, and I also have Vincent here with Creative Planning. You want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. Vince Allegro, a partner and managing director with Creative Planning.
All right. All right, we are.
Excuse me,
seeking
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Alderman.
I'm going to recuse myself from this due to a potential conflict, so.
Okay, so let the record show that Alderman Warren will be stepping aside, recusing himself from this particular issue. Okay, continue.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's start with why are we doing this? So we are the plan sponsor for 457 retirement plans, which are tax-deferred retirement savings accounts, and they're offered as the overall benefits package from the city. The number one reason, though, is our participants. So right now, they're paying 100% of the fees related to these plans, through the investment fees and also the record keeper fees. So as our city, our fiduciary duty is to offer the competitive options. Right now, it could be loans, Roth options, or just overall investment selection to have competitive rates in the current marketplace with relation to the investment fees and record keeper fees. And then we also want to implement and maintain best practices. We've had Secure Act 2.0 that recently came into legislation. We want to make sure we keep pace with that and any other things that occur in the marketplace. The last evaluation that we performed was in 2003, and a lot of things have obviously changed in the marketplace since that time. And so our plan right now is to perform a formal RFP in 2025 as part of our due diligence. So our current record keepers, just to kind of give you some history, here are their names and also the date where those plans were implemented. most of these plans obviously started in the 80s, with two coming on in the 90s and then one in the 2000s. Because these plans were implemented over different periods of time, they're all there's different aspects and components. There's not a lot of standardization across all these plans. And because these were implemented at this point over 3 decades ago, the expectations of our participants have evolved over time. So we want different investment diversity, we want different plan options. There are participant portals, customer service, all these things have changed drastically since this time. So it comes to our RFQ. We received a total of 12 responses. The 5 best responses were invited in-person interviews, and here's the criteria that we used to evaluate them. We determined that criteria 1 and 3 provided the most value to our participants, and overall were weighted relative 30-25%. Creative planning received the highest scores in both of those 2 criteria, as well as the overall score due to their specialization, independence, and firm size. So I wanted to kind of talk about our decision factors specific to creative planning. They are an independent consultant. They have no proprietary funds. There's no affiliations with any banks, brokers, or investment managers. They're going to operate as what's called a 321 co-fiduciary. They're going to share the responsibility and liability with the city. They're going to provide advice and guidance, but ultimately the city retains discretion for the actual decision making. They have a specialization in this area. With other plans of our size, complexities, number of vendors, we have some illiquid insurance contract annuities. So they have 24 previous multi-vendor projects. I think the best comps for us would be Des Moines, Naperville, and Bolingbrook. And a key aspect that was definitely a differentiating factor of them versus other consultants was that they have in-house ERISA counsels available for plan guidance and compliance. And then ultimately, we're not making any decisions on our 457 plans today. We're only requesting authorization to have creative planning to initiate their plan and record keeping evaluations. If they find no opportunities for savings for our participants, they're going to terminate the contract, and then there's going to be no fees charged for those services that are rendered up to that point. Should they find opportunities for cost savings, we'll continue the process. And just to kind of reiterate, there's no upfront costs. The participants currently pay 100% of the cost. They're also going to get 100% of the benefit through this process. And just to make the distinction, the fees will accrue, but there's going to be no deductions made until creative planning has performed their evaluation and already and implement the reduced fee structure. So essentially, they're going to do all of what they're promising to do before they get a dime from any of our participants. So I just want to make that key distinction there. I'll turn it over to Vincent.
So really the goal today is to ask permission to move forward with the due diligence and evaluation of the city's deferred comp 457 program. So really step 1 is expanding the existing city's deferred comp committee to really broaden and create a more representation outside of just city staff. So include representatives from police, fire, public works, and some of the other areas within the city. So step 1, expand the committee, which will be responsible for overseeing the RFP and eventually the formal recommendation back to city council when the process is complete.
Go ahead, sorry.
The next step, once the committee is formalized and expanded, would actually be launching a formal RFP for record-keeping services. So we're going to go to the market and look at all of the potential vendors and basically pool the city's 457 program today, which has somewhere between $80 to $90 million spread between all the different vendors. We will execute a formal RFP with the goals of minimizing the expenses, making sure we can get access to the best possible investments. We want access to a great platform and technology. We also want to make sure we get superior service, an education program that will help our city employees get on track and stay on track for successful retirement, but then also handle all of the administrative day-to-day responsibilities that are currently being handled in-house by city employees. Next slide, please. So again, it is a kind of a two-step process. Again, issuing the RFP, we will do all of the research and due diligence. We will provide an executive summary back to the expanded 457 committee. We will then, if there is a potential opportunity to improve the city's 457 program, we will then bring in finalists, formal presentations, and then the 457 committee would be in a position to make a formal recommendation back to City Council. Ongoing, if the decision is made to move forward, creative planning will assist with the entire project management. We serve in a fiduciary capacity at all times, which means we are required by law to always act in the city's best interest. We will select the investment lineup. We will monitor the investments on an ongoing basis, and we will establish a comprehensive employee communication and education program with the winning vendor. The RFP process, myself and my team, we have executed 24 multi-vendor 457 consolidation projects, most of them over the last 5 to 7 years. Over the last 5 years, several of these were of similar size municipalities to the city, DuPage County, Naperville, Bolingbrook, Wheaton, and Des Moines. In all of these cases, the average fee savings that we experienced through this process was in the 50 to 70% range. And based on the data that we have on the current city 457 program, we feel like that is definitely the expectations we should set for the city's 457 program. This is a long process. Even if we got started in January, we are looking at a July to August potential rollout. So the first 30 to 60 days is really the due diligence, gathering the data on the existing program, populating the RFP, sending it out to the market. We need to give them about 30 days to respond to the RFP. We will then aggregate all of the RFP responses and prepare an executive summary that we will then share with the City 457 committee. Sometime in April then, the committee, next slide please. Sometime in April, May, the committee will then be in a position to select potential finalists where they would do in-person, on-site interviews. And then the committee could be in a position to make a formal recommendation by May or June. If they do decide to move forward with a consolidation, we are looking at final implementation somewhere in the July to August time period. So I think the goal today is to receive approval to move forward with just the due diligence and do the research to establish if there is an opportunity to improve the city's 457 deferred comp plan. Again, no decisions being made at this time. Our goal is to be in a position about 3 to 4 months from now to have the data that the Deferred Comp Committee needs to make a data-driven, informed decision about what is the best path for city employees through the Deferred Comp.
All right, the committee have any questions for us?
Well, I could start off with, this sounds like a great idea. Why have we not addressed this for 21 years? You could basically go to oversee our funds for us, to bring it all together to get us the best price for our employees, and yet we haven't looked at this since 2003. Does that seem unusual to you guys as being the third-party person here? Is that normal for cities, not to have anybody overlooking and all of a sudden, decades later, jumping into the fray?
So in my experience, in my previous employers, there's always just one option. I think that's pretty typical. I think here, there just were certain, I think the plan was as long as there was enough participants to kind of come together saying we want this option available, and they had enough to meet the threshold, they were allowed to have a plan open for those people. Then over time, either they got more participants and have grown, or they've dwindled in participation. It was more the option to just have a variety. So I think at the time it was just more so options were presented, they met the threshold, and they were able to have plans adopted. Sure.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Minnick again. Yeah, I think over time, the 457 plan in the deferred compensation arena has evolved, and I think it's gotten a little more sophisticated as time has moved along. It used to be a little bit more of a kind of a hands-off, I hate to use that term, but essentially it was a voluntary benefit that employees kind of availed themselves of. And over time, as some bad situations kind of came to light and more regulation came in, more oversight came in, it's evolved into a little bit more of a formalized process now. You see a lot more focus on developing formalized investment policy statements. You see a lot more in terms of governance and approval and committees coming together to make decisions more so than you used to in say, the early 2000s, and actually monitoring the fees and the investment performance over time. So I think it's kind of an outgrowth of that, and we want to make sure that, as we talked a little bit ago, that we're doing our due diligence, making sure we're maximizing the ability of our employees to take advantage of the best practices that are out there, and also to lower the fees to the lowest possible competent levels so that they can enjoy growth in their money, so that when they do retire, there's a nice, healthy balance they're waiting for.
So basically, the evolution of this environment basically creating a need now where it probably wasn't there before because things have gotten so much more complex, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that. I think, there have been some litigated cases, over time that have happened just with regard to deferred compensation programs, and I think that it has evolved and it's become a little bit more focused on doing the due diligence and making sure that due diligence is documented and carried out.
Okay. All right, thank you
If,
for that.
Mr. Chairman, I can, just to follow up to that, I can confirm, this is not a City of Aurora issue. City of Des Moines had 9 different vendors. So this has been very common amongst Midwestern cities and municipalities. I can also say the big change happened about 10 years ago with the term open investment architecture. Historically, prior to that, one provider only offered their own proprietary investments. So ING only offered ING funds. Fidelity only offered Fidelity funds. So the only way for a city to get diversification for their employees, they had to open multiple plans. What changed about 10 years ago, one provider now, actually you can get any investment. So through one provider, we can get Vanguard, we can get American funds, we can get Fidelity. So the investment platforms opened up, which eliminated the need to go to multiple different record keepers.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Other questions or comments from the committee? Do we have a motion?
Motion to.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bates, second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes 4-0. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And we will go to the next item in a second as soon as Alderman Warman returns.
Sure, Alderman Franco, Patrick Collins with the city's law department. Just for some clarification, Alderman Warman recused himself on the wrong item. After some clarification, this wasn't the one, but upon speaking with him, a recommendation, since he wasn't in here, I recommended that he not participate in the vote, but can fully participate in COW. Just wanted to make the council aware of that, so everyone's on the same page.
All right. Why don't you stick around just to make sure nobody recuses themselves wrongly again? Just keep an eye on us.
I thought that was the Alderman compensation.
Well, it was a
Wanted to
good
leave that
practice.
one,
It's
so-
like a fire alarm. We're ready for the fire now. All right, we got that going on. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right, so next one is 24-0965, a resolution authorizing the execution of a license agreement with 7 South LLC for the use of a portion of Skinny Park for outdoor dining and access to support a restaurant at 7 South Broadway.
Good afternoon, Chairman Franco and committee members. Trevor Dick, Assistant Director in the Mayor's Office of Economic Development. Good afternoon. As Chairman Franco said, this item is to request approval for a resolution authorizing the execution of a license agreement with 7 South LLC for the use of a portion of what is known as Skinny Park for outdoor dining and access to support the future restaurant, which will be known as Vicolo, that's 7 South Broadway. The owners of the new restaurant are proposing to construct and maintain an outdoor dining area immediately south of their building, which is landlocked, on the city-owned property. Because there is no land available on their property, the petitioner is seeking to enter into a license agreement to use a portion of Skinny Park for outdoor dining as agreed to by the City Council in the RDA R24-185. That includes language that a future outdoor dining agreement will be brought forward to Council for approval at a later date between both parties. This agreement will allow the business to use the area shown on the exhibit year-round for outdoor dining. It will allow the business to install either temporary and/or permanent elements, including fencing, seating, tables, lighting, and planters on this licensed area. Necessary approvals will be required from the Development Review Committee, which they're scheduled to attend on December 18th for a review and approval, as well as the city's Building and Permitting Department. The petitioner will be responsible for all maintenance within the area, which includes the mowing of any grass and future landscaping. Staff recommends approval of this license agreement, as will be part of the city's RDA with the restaurant group, but it will also increase the city's overall tax base by allowing greater investment and additional food and beverage taxes. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Questions or comments from committee? Alderwoman Bade?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Trevor. I had a question. Since they're going in through this agreement, licensed, they will be licensed to make any temporary and permanent changes in this area.
Yes.
Say 10 years from now or 15 years from now, if they don't want to utilize this area, is there anything that we say that they're responsible for removing?
That's a great question. So that's something that, and Patrick Collins, I see him in the corner too, we've been working on that question, Alderwoman, and where we ended up with for this one is because of the property, because of the shape of this parcel, it's so unique that it's going to be fully built out as a very nice restaurant, a lot of equipment, kitchen, that this building will be ripe for a restaurant in the future, even if they change their mind or want to leave. So for this one, you'll see in a couple of weeks, for a separate one, we have them put in a different project, put in a security bond to remove the project. We feel that these improvements, especially the site work, will be something that we'll want even in the future.
Okay. And the other thing, it is still city-owned property?
Yes.
Liability, whose liability for any?
So there is a very extensive insurance policy. I keep looking at Patrick, but I'm looking at a column instead. He's hiding on me. But yes, there will be insurance that they'll be required to obtain to make sure that the city's not liable for any injuries.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
I did have a question because I thought at one point we talked about, in addition to Skinny Park, Water Street. So what is the deal there? Because I know, well, if Graceful Ordinary ever opens up, I thought they would want to use that too. So I didn't know how Water Street was going to factor into those restaurants utilizing similar space.
Yep, that's a great question, Chairman. So that's something else we've been talking a lot about as staff. Working with the owners of the restaurant, it was determined that they will come back forward like any other business in Aurora and seek a temporary seasonal outdoor license agreement. At one point, this included that as well. Honestly, it started to muddy the waters. So what we're going to do for Water Street Mall is they'll come in with their plan every season and submit that for approval. The biggest thing for Water Street Mall is it's a unique public space where we want to make sure the say outdoor furniture and fencing is removed to allow snow plowing, et cetera. So
Sure.
we wanted to have a little bit more control of that.
Well, and I would guess too, is that you have those restaurants relatively close, backing up. If you had them both on Water Street, you might be able to not get through there. So I remember when More on the River was there, they had just the one side, and there was enough room, but there was no adjacent restaurant to put their stuff there. So I was thinking maybe a logistics thing potentially.
Alderman, another great question that we thought about as well, because we thought about, we were out there, if you saw us as planners, we love those measuring wheels. We were out there trying to envision what it would look like there, how much walkable space would be. And if we allowed too much room and couldn't get that back, that would be unfortunate for the public. So this allows us the flexibility to really try it out on the Water Street Mall to see what really feels like.
Sure.
or feels best.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have a motion? We have a motion by Alderman Bates, second by Alderman Warman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item is 24-0968, a resolution authorizing execution of a 5-year health services agreement with Marathon Health LLC for the establishment of a near-site clinic in the city.
Chairman Franco, this is the one I need to recuse.
Why don't you just go out, and we'll let you know when to come back. How's that sound? All right, thank you. All right, so let the record show that Alderman Warman is recusing himself from this particular item. We're good.
Good afternoon, Alexander, Chief Management Officer. I'm joined by Chris Minnick, our Chief Financial Officer. We also have our esteemed HR department in the house, Alicia and Liz, and our consultant, health insurance consultant, Mike Baker. On Teams, John, I believe our folks from Marathon Health should be on
Okay.
momentarily. There's Larry Morrissey from Marathon.
Hello, Kristen
On
Morgan.
as well.
Yes.
Let's see, the magic of live television.
Wow. Yeah, very nice.
There you go. Hi, Kristen.
Hello.
So what you have before you is a resolution. We're looking to capitalize on a very, I think, innovative and interesting opportunity for us to solve a number of issues that we've been having over a number of years. This is sort of a two-part benefit that we're looking to achieve. One is on the work comp and occupational health side, the market has changed significantly. It's become more challenging for HR with a single provider currently to fully service and provide the necessary workers' comp response for our employees, as well as the occupational health and the other HR-related items, whether they're contractual physicals, vaccinations. And so the other benefit here is for health insurance. As you know, we have switched to Blue Cross Blue Shield fully starting in 2025, both on the PPO side and the HMO side. And so through the past year, the discussions around the concept of a near site, what's called a near site clinic, or basically an employer clinic for our employees. And so through a confluence of events and discussions and some research, the city of Rockford has a very successful clinic that we have looked at for a number of years actually, but didn't have the financial wherewithal, and Chris is going to get into how we're financing this, didn't have that financial wherewithal or opportunity to do it, but for the renewal and the negotiation with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then working with Mike Baker to look at our health insurance policy currently, and could this also serve as another clinic that our employees could go to for primary care, other services. The other thing that I'm particularly enthused about, HR has told us repeatedly, our employees have said repeatedly, getting behavioral health appointments are in some cases months in the making to get an appointment. And so this model that we are proposing not only includes a full-time MD and physician's assistants, but a full-time behavioral health specialist who will be manning the clinic. And so I don't want to steal too much thunder, but the concept here is pretty straightforward from an overview level. We would construct a 2,500 square foot clinic on the second floor of Bloomhaven So you already know that the first floor is being built out by V&A. V&A does not do, before anybody asks, because I know somebody's going to ask, V&A does not provide these types of services because they're more Medicare, Medicaid. We are, this clinic will be for employees. There'll be, and Mike, if you would come up so I don't mess this up, but we've got in the various benefits in the memo, but basically all our employees could go to this clinic, all the PPO employees, all their dependents, retirees under age 65. And Mike will go over some of the different benefits. And there's a slide deck that we included that I think Marathon will go over. And then I'd like Mr. Minnick to do a little deep dive in not only how we're paying for this, but what the return on investment is. And we were very surprised at how quickly, given the utilization, not just by HR for OC Health and Work Comp, but by our employees, that this will be part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield city network for people to avail themselves of. So it's one of these other situations where we're basically controlling our own destiny here and managing our costs. And I can tell you anecdotally from going several times to Rockford and talking to Rockford and their employees love it, their unions love it, they're very protective of the clinic there. And Marathon, as you will see, is a national player, very unique. And so a lot of things have come together here in a very positive way. So, Mike, before Chris goes into the money, could you just comment on the health insurance piece?
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon. So think of the clinic as another provider in the Blue Cross network. So if you're in the PPO plan, active employee or pre-65 and their dependents, they can go to the clinic for primary care, urgent care, a typical ER visit, lab services, and there's 200 prescriptions that are very common that folks would need. All of those services would be free to your employee and their dependents. So that's the incentive to drive them to the clinic. They do not have to use the clinic. Clinic promises same day or next day appointments, and then behavioral health services. So again, it's just an additional provider that the benefit for the employees and their families is free healthcare coverage. On the HSA side, so any employees in the HSA, it will be a copay of $25, which is a significant savings versus a standard doctor visit. That $25 will go to offset the cost of the clinic, and it will be applied to their deductible. Again, they don't have to use the clinic, but if they do use the clinic, they would get discounted services that comply with the HSA regulations. In addition, there are, of those 200 prescriptions, there are a fair amount of those prescriptions that would be deemed preventive, so i.e. hypertension, so your blood pressure meds. They could get them at the clinic for free and still be in compliance with the IRS regulations. So again, improved benefits for your members at a lower cost or a free cost at the clinic.
Yeah, and so there are really two main benefits or two main factors that allow for us to pay for the costs related to the clinic. Number one is we're taking what's essentially a variable cost in terms of claims. Every time an individual goes to the doctor, there's a claim that's generated, and that's paid by the city's insurance plans and insurance funds. What we're doing instead is establishing this clinic. There will be set monthly fees that go into items such as the staffing of the clinic. There will also be a reimbursement for leasing charges and Marathon's contracting for the space. But what that does is it freezes those costs over time. So, and additionally, the medicines and the lab supplies and things of that nature that were referred to a moment ago, those will be a little bit more variable costs, but they would be at a discounted level, and we would be able to obtain those for cheaper than we would be able to obtain them on the market. So when we take a look at that and we look at the costs, the fixed costs, and the anticipated variable costs for those items, and compare that to the savings that are generated because we're not incurring those variable claims through the insurance plan anymore. Those actually offset and, in fact, provide savings to the city over time. We anticipate, and the contract does call for monthly costs of, not monthly, annual costs of about 1.2 to about 1.4 million over that time, over that 6-year time frame. But 5-year time frame. But we anticipate that the savings that will be generated will range from about $98,000 the first year up to about $2.5 million for the last year, or about $6.4 million in total. So when we compare the claim savings that we're going to get over that 5-year period with the anticipated costs of the clinic, we anticipate that those costs will be $6.4 million lower over time moving forward. Additionally, in terms of the one-time costs for the build-out, the city is receiving some implementation credits from Blue Cross Blue Shield for the implementation of some consolidation of our insurance plans to BCBS this year, and we expect that those credits will actually offset the costs of constructing the clinic. So we are anticipating quite a financially beneficial arrangement. The other item that kind of helps us in terms of generating those savings is that medical trend right now is running about 9.5%. And what we have done is we've locked in the contract with Marathon for that 5-year period. Our annual increase is less than 5%. So we're being able to take advantage of the gap between where we're contracting our fixed costs as well as the relationship to medical trend over time. So a very beneficial arrangement, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
And a couple additional thoughts. HR, Alicia, Liz, Nikki Barron, they're doing a great job dealing with workers' comp. On an annual basis, we spend anywhere between $260,000 and $300,000 for the services we get currently. So our goal here, and one of the reasons why we brought it forward before the end of the year, is to be able to, ideally, beginning with the end in mind, we'd like to have the clinic open by next October open enrollment to go full bore first of the year 2026. We would require one more year basically with our current provider for workers' comp, and then that, say, $200,000 or $300,000, that expense would apply. We wouldn't be paying that, but it would go into this clinic, if that makes sense. So we would be reducing one expenditure and provider and replacing it with this clinic that we have, as Chris talked about, contractually. We've locked in costs, we've locked in program elements. I think it might make a little more sense if I let Kristen or Larry quickly go through the slide deck, which is in there, which gives some of the background. But basically, we're covering and providing enhanced workers' comp coverage for our employees, which, as you know, is required by law, that we have to provide at least the triage or the immediate care for work comp injuries. But then also the primary cost savings and return on investment will come from the health insurance utilization. And we would notify all employees. That's why open enrollment. In January, we would then go out for an RFP for someone to build this out, for a contractor to build it out. And we would manage the construction in-house to save some additional funds between the folks we have on staff, public facilities, and the like. So Marathon would be the lessee with Bloomhaven. So that also means that baked into the lease is taxes. So remember when one of the tenets of the RDA at Bloomhaven was to have tax generating tenants. So that's why Marathon built in, and they're finalizing the lease, but it's intended to be that $75,000, and then we're paying the fee every month for the dedicated MD, the 2 medical assistants, and the licensed mental health professionals. So maybe, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, we can have
Sure,
Kristen and Larry
absolutely.
go through their
Sure.
deck, and then we can entertain questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex. As they eloquently already mentioned, we all know traditional healthcare in the United States is in a fee-for-service model. So you have a claim, and then Blue Cross Blue Shield charges the city, you have to pay that claim. And unfortunately, it's a very fragmented and high-cost environment with limited quality. With the advanced primary care model, where the employer directs the services, there's guaranteed appointment times. There's a slowing down of the process in which a patient is seen, meaning all visits are 20 or 40 minutes in length, and we're able to really get to the root cause of a patient's condition. So Alex did a great job of outlining what the challenges are today for the city. Access for primary care and occupational care. Of course, the advancement of the project in the city, and the quality care from the occupational health vendor that you all currently use.
Kristen, we're just trying to pull up the deck 1 second.
Oh, is it not sharing my screen?
No, I don't think you have to do that. We have the deck loaded.
Okay, great.
The other, while we're waiting, the other long-term benefit that we're looking at is we could, over this 5-year period, assuming things can go well as forecast, we could open this up to school districts, other government partners. As you know, right next to Bloomhaven is the 131 school district headquarters. They've got 150 employees. We could do that with a fee type arrangement. So we could open it up on a limited basis, but I know it's gotten so popular with employees in Rockford that Rockford wanted to do that, and the employees are like, no, we want this for our own benefit, both from a OC Health, work comp, but primarily from the health insurance side. So now it's up, Kristen, so you can, I think, we'll skip past the challenges. You talked about that.
We may have muted her by bringing up.
Oh.
Larry, I can hear you. Can you all hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yes. Yeah. Alex, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Larry, I'll keep going. And I don't think they can hear you.
But we're on the high cost of poor health, that crisis, that slide. Can you see the slide?
Yes. Yes. You're on the cost of the high cost of poor health and an ongoing crisis?
Yes.
Great. Yes. So Larry Morrissey, who is a previous mayor with the city of Rockford and now a teammate of mine at Marathon Health, he himself was the one that put in Marathon at the city of Rockford and has had great success with that program since. And so there's, study after study, unfortunately, with police officers, firefighters that, die due to suicide and other preventable measures if by having a primary care relationship in place with the employer. Yes, Larry. I've advanced to the worksite care model.
Yeah. I'll
Great.
advance it, so you just keep rolling.
Okay, great. So essentially, as already discussed, we provide an employer-directed model with advanced primary care and total population health through a value-based payment system direct from the employer. And we really do have a mission of helping millions of people live their healthiest lives one patient at a time. So we are transforming healthcare across the nation, and we are very experienced in the public sector business. I'm on slide 8. We have over 150 public sector clients and have a footprint obviously across the nation of cities, counties, townships, school districts, and municipalities, and even state contracts with this model of care. I can hear you, Larry. I don't know if they can hear you.
We can't hear Larry.
We cannot.
So Larry, they just can't hear you. That's okay. So what do we deliver? We deliver at our core advanced primary care. And today I think everybody in this room has probably had a doctor's appointment in hopefully the last 12 months, if not the last couple of years. And we really try to be a very comprehensive care model, all the way from true primary and preventive care and going around the continuum. Of course, we want to be available for urgent needs, but then we also do a lot around chronic condition management of those people that have hypertensive, diabetes, mental health needs. So we really try to have an all-encompassing model that includes full primary care plus occupational health care services. And they even can pick up a medicine on the way out. And receive lab work in the clinical settings, where oftentimes you're having to go 1 to 2 to 3 places in order to accomplish the comprehensive care service of that level, and maybe take a couple of hours off of work in order to do that. And our goal is to be able to see patients effectively and efficiently, treat those patients, and get them back to work in a timely fashion. And so navigating forward, our care approach is really built around building deep relationships, trusted relationships with our patients, so they come back and see us time and time again. Integrating our clinical care model with a fixed fee price, as already discussed, and then fully enabling ourselves with the technology necessary so Blue Cross Blue Shield knows what we're doing inside the 4 walls of our clinic, but we're not getting reimbursed by them at all. And we'll be able to submit reports to the city monthly, quarterly, and annually, kind of talking about the services that are being rendered that are obviously not disclosing any private health information or HIPAA-related guidelines, but more in an aggregate fashion. What are the top 5 conditions seen? What have been the top meds dispensed in the clinic? And then where have we had some successes in reducing down the spend against your plan in, key metrics of BMI, hypertensive, diabetic, and asthmatics. And so moving forward, we also have a philosophical approach around occupational health. As Alex already mentioned, that's a big need from the HR team to really making sure we focus on prevention, early intervention, and then injury management when necessary, and being available for our patients from a primary care perspective as well as occupational health. So how it would work for the city of Aurora, based on our operating costs, there will be a flat monthly fee in a fixed environment for, as Alex already mentioned, a full-time MD, 2 medical assistants that will support that MD, and a licensed behavioral health specialist. And we will charge those through on a flat monthly fee environment, which is well different than how you're, handling those expenses now through the Blue Cross Blue Shield program, where those are paid as claims are rendered. No matter who comes and sees us for services, think of it like Netflix. You can consume as many shows in a month's time. You can see us as many times as you need in a calendar month or year, and we just charge that same flat fee. The only variable expenses are the prescriptions and labs that are, again, deeply discounted against what a retail expense would be in the community.
And in fact, the more utilization that the clinic gets, the more we actually save in terms of dollars that we're not spending with Blue Cross Blue Shield as part of the claims cost, but they're baked in to that flat monthly rate, the next Netflix rate, if you will, that the city would be paying on that monthly basis.
Absolutely, yes. And the four key measurable components of where we find there to be the most success, if you will, is really driving down those unnecessary urgent care and ER expenses. So, something like a common flu, an ear infection, pink eye, if those levels of care are running to the urgent care emergency room today, that's a very high cost for the city to bear. And we can see a lot of those cares can render that type of care in our clinical setting. And so we normally see about a 10 to 15% savings just in unnecessary care from those two claims spend. And then, of course, we see a leakage of primary care when people are coming and having that done at a level set month by month environment versus the claims that run through the plan. And then, of course, labs and prescriptions is where we really could see a big savings for the city and employees and their out-of-pocket expenses. Because, again, we're not paying markups and retail expenses for those line items. We just pass those through to you at cost to us. And then, so the overall plan impact, that expected plan spend with trend or medical inflation, again, if that's running at about 9 to 10% year over year, we're looking to really flatten that then trend curve and have an overall plan savings of between 1 and 3% of your spend. The other thing to note financially is that we do put performance guarantees against our program. So we will absolutely put performance guarantees against the utilization of the clinic, what we call member engagement. And again, the more people that use it, the more we're pulling money away from the plan. Are they loving their experience when they go? So we do survey our populations at each visit. And then is their overall health improving? So we look at a number of clinical quality measures, and are those metrics getting better? Are we improving the sickest population? Are we maintaining the medium population? And are the well staying well? And so we'll look at those measurements over a time frame, deliver those results to assured partners in the city, and prove our value up against a performance guarantee for each metric. Yes. Yeah, and I'm assuming you all still can't hear Larry.
We can't, but we know we just put up the City of Rockford, that sample claims trend chart.
Yeah, this is a crazy eye chart. It's not an echogram. It's actually where over a period of time since Clinic Go Live with the City of Rockford, where their trend was headed, which is the snapshot orange line, and then where their monthly claim spend actually went into effect. And you can see how well they beat what was expected to spend over the time frame from October 2012 through July of 23. And I believe they're, in the top right, it explains their year 9 claims and cumulative savings was 6.6 below projected assumptions, and their cumulative claims were 44.5 million below projection over the 9-year period. We also have the City of Charlotte as a client, and we drive wonderful engagement with them with an 84% employee engagement based on some pretty significant wellness incentives they have in place, a very high satisfaction rating of 99%, and a year-over-year savings with them of for every dollar spent in the clinic, they're seeing almost a $2 return on that investment. And I'll just wrap with saying, and Larry does this best, being a former mayor himself, but I'll attempt to do it. Larry and I work together a lot. One of the strategic driving outcomes that we see is really supporting those members that are of public safety officials. And so really targeting that group to come in and see us, to get the support they need from behavioral health counseling and EAP services that you're already providing, and make sure we're in collaboration with those. The picture here is actually of one of our client forums where we do a full breakout of all of our public sector clients and have, representation in the room where we can collaborate with our municipal clients and talk about what's working, what's not working, and how to improve as a company for our city clients. So with that, I'll take questions.
Questions or comments from the committee? Alderwoman Bade.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is for city employees only to start with.
That is correct. It'll be for city employees on the PPO, their dependents, and retirees, pre-65 retirees and their dependents.
And did we budget this in 2025?
Yes, we did budget it as part of the health insurance, fund. So we do believe that with the credits and all the discussions and the charges that we have enough to cover everything, all the costs that are anticipated.
And for the build out, BCBS will be taking care of the cost 100% or what percentage?
Yes, there were enough in credits, as I recall, that we are getting through Blue Cross Blue Shield and their implementation to cover the anticipated build-out costs.
So Alderwoman Bade, in the past, just to be clear, when we had Cigna and even before Cigna, there were instances where, for example, in a renewal, they would give us some wellness credits, right? 150,000 here, 50,000 there. So with the significant movement to Blue Cross, in other words, this finally becoming a all Blue Cross shop, right, on PPO, HMO, the numbers were large enough where we thought, okay, what can we do with this money to make this a recurring benefit and create recurring savings? So one option was, yeah, we could have said, all right, for 1 year, we're just going to take that credit, reduce everybody's premiums for a year, and then go back to the regular trend next year and the year after, where we're looking at almost 10% increases across the board, or more, depending on claims. But here we thought, just like some of the other things we've done lately, where we've brought in money to the city from various sources, and like the Cyrus One, that transformational fund discussion. That money that's in MOED, for example, is meant to be recurring and rebuilding, and the same thing here. So we have a chance to create this clinic using this fund from Blue Cross and create a situation through plan design and occupational health utilization that it will not only pay for itself, but generate savings like it's done in Charlotte and Rockford. Not just hundreds of thousands of dollars, but millions to our health fund. So the last time we did something this transformative was when we shifted, for example, the post-65 retirees to the Medicare Advantage plan and took it out of the city insurance plan. That saved millions of dollars, but kept everybody with the coverage they need. So here, also from an equity perspective, you know, from looking at the pay plans that Alicia, for example, just put through, especially in the non-exempt and the executive, we have a wide range of employee positions and wide range of salaries. But one common denominator is everybody, the great majority of people, have health insurance through the city. So think about the opportunity to get free health care, right? No co-pays. You can get prescriptions through here, and all of it driven through a clinic that we control, that's fixed with the Marathon folks. So it's really a win-win that we decided to take advantage of this opportunity.
And so employee share, you said nothing if they're opting in for our insurance. Annual rent share will be $75K.
So
that
Marathon
city
will pay
reimburse.
$75,000, and
City
we're
will reimburse.
reimbursing them as part of the monthly spend.
And 104K is also a monthly cost to the city.
Correct. Approximately,
Rent is not
yes.
included in this.
What's that?
it's, rent is not included in this.
Rent,
It's
it's not
separate.
included in the 104, no.
Correct.
And
it's
that
separate.
includes the fee for the MD and
Yeah.
assistants?
It's all inclusive, correct.
Yes.
Okay. And so something like urgent care?
For
we
city
can see
employees is
this
included.
kind of urgent care, so they can expect lab works?
Correct.
Yes.
The staff is so little, so is it first come, first basis, the appointment, or how?
So Kristen, or can you talk about the staffing model that we chose?
Yes. I know it seems light, but because this is an exclusive benefit just to your people, unfortunately, it's not like Chick-fil-A where we have a big ribbon cutting and there's a line out the door. We're still talking about primary care. And so, given our experience, we really do feel like a 40-hour model will support your employee and membership count very easily. And as Alex mentioned, if and when you ever wanted to add other employers into the mix, and or add hours of operation, we could add other employers into that site and then charge them through for services by adding staff. And now kind of come one, come all, everybody benefits when you wanted to expand. But we can definitely support your level of membership at 40 hours.
Okay, and so 104, 100K, 87 is the Netflix membership for the city.
Yes.
And 75K employees are not paying anything.
Nothing.
Irrespective of how many people take advantage of this, this is what we are paying.
Correct.
Correct.
That's right. Outside of a copay that would be required for HSA rules, if anybody's enrolled in a health savings account. So we will know when a member arrives which plan they're in, if we need to charge something for non-preventive services, in which case we just we collect that money and refund the city for it.
And the 5% annual increase is on the 104K,
Correct.
not
Yes.
different.
Correct.
On the 104, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I've not been able to connect the dots exactly from what was said and what's in here, so I just want to go over this real quick.
Okay.
You said it's going to cost the city 1.2 to 1.4 million a year? Did I hear that correctly before?
That's correct.
Correct.
And we're getting a $6.4 million savings over 5 years?
That's correct.
Correct.
So help me with that. So we're paying about 6 million and we're saving 6 million? Is that how this, because you know,
No,
if we're
we're
paying
paying-
1.4, 1.2 to 1.4.
I'm sorry, we're paying the one-time build out.
Okay,
And that's being paid by the credits that we've received, negotiated with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
okay,
So that will establish the clinic. Now, the clinic will be run through a contractual agreement, which is what's before you now,
Right,
between
right.
the city and Marathon. So the cost of them running it for us is what's stated in the contract. The first year is
It's about 1.2.
Correct.
1.2 to 1.3.
plus we'll pay them, we'll reimburse them the rent to Bloomhaven. So the 75,000, taxes included, but it's between them and Bloomhaven. And then that's our cost of operating the clinic.
Yes.
So the savings will come because the PPO employees, their dependents, the retirees will utilize the clinic in lieu of going to other facilities where there are fee-for-services charged back to the health plan.
well, right, so I got all that, I just didn't know how, that seems like, for what we're putting in, and we're still getting a $6 million savings, holy smokes, that's a big difference, because that's, I mean, it's
Well, and
bigger
it's what
numbers than I thought
Rockford-
it would be, right, because,
100%.
right, because we're
What
putting in 5 or
Rockford's
6 million,
experience-
and we're saving 6 million, that's pretty significant.
Yeah,
It is.
The
Right.
first year, I mean, based on utilization, and we modeled, our analytic team at Assured Partners modeled savings as well to verify marathons. So first year is a break even to maybe a slight expense.
Sure.
But over the 5-year period, and this doesn't factor in any of the OC Health savings or any HSA copays coming back in, so it's a conservative estimate. Over the 5 years, your health plan spend is going to come down about $12 million. So that's
Well,
where you're
now,
getting-
yeah, see, that 12 million was the key, because now that all makes sense between the 6-ish and the 6 we're spending, and the 6 we're getting, okay, perfect, because that's really what I was looking for, how do we get there? And that 12 million number had to be there to make that savings. If we're paying $6 million to save $6 million-ish. All right, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure the math was
Yes.
in line. I knew it had to be, I just wasn't, it
And
wasn't
and
coming
we
to me
will,
quite away.
when the clinic gets up and running, and our vision is to launch it next October, have open enrollment meetings there to drive excitement of the population. And then every quarter, starting in 2025 or 2026, we will do evaluation, utilization, what's coming out of the medical plan, so we can show the city, here's what you're saving on medical, here's what you're saving on RX, here's what you're saving on OC Health. And so we'll track that quarterly and ramp that up over the 5 years.
Okay.
And unfortunately, in case anybody's wondering about what else is out there in terms of health clinics, all of our two major hospitals closed their occupational health facility. Mercy closed theirs several years ago. Rush did the same thing. And so we are left basically with one provider, and then urgent care, like Mercy sold theirs to an urgent care provider who great at urgent care, but they're not occupational health or workers' comp specialists. So literally, when you've got police and fire and public works people and anybody getting injured, the priority is getting them care immediately. Obviously, emergencies are emergencies, but non-emergencies, it's not just that, but then how do we get them the treatment they need to get them back to full unrestricted duty? And so we think, we haven't even scratched the surface of what the success of this clinic could mean for our workers, our excess work comp insurance health renewals, not to mention our health renewals going forward. And the fact that we can lock in these savings in an era when it's 9.5%, 10% inflation, and everybody's read about the shortage of doctors. So it's not just behavioral health doctors, but there's a shortage coming in this country, and we're able, and we've got work to do. So today, after this gets approved, hopefully by council, we're not done. We will be coming back to you with the results of an RFP to build it out, but then Marathon is going to go out, once it's approved, they've got to go out and interview and hire doctors and nurses and all of that, and then we will staff. So we have a pretty good idea of the size of the clinic and the layout, and hopefully it's just the beginning. It's expandable, but we're trying to be conservative and look at how we can solve a couple of these things that have been sort of a significant issue for us for several years.
All right, not to belabor this, do we have any more questions about this? Because I'm sure we're going to have a little bit of this discussion at COW, and I hope it's a little bit shorter than this. Alderman Bade, you got one more question? Because we're going to wrap this up.
Just a quick clarification I wanted to, so licensed social worker, mental health therapist, annual cost is $186,280. That is already included in what we are paying?
That is included in the monolly fee, yes.
Right.
It's, yes.
Got it. Thanks.
All right, do we have a motion on this particular resolution? We got a motion by Alderman Tolliver, second by Alderwoman Bade. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
We can bring in
Thank you.
Alderman Warman now.
Wake him up.
All right, let the record show that Alderman Warman is coming back. They all left, huh? Well, we're moving on. Next item on the agenda is 24-0973, a resolution authorizing a contract extension to FH Passion SS Nielsen and Associates LLC of Chicago, Illinois, for job order contracting vendor services with the city of Aurora.
Jim Birchall, Chief Public Facilities Officer.
Jolene Coulter, Director of Purchasing.
So we're asking for our JOC program to be extended for 1 year with 3 one-year extensions. It'll be changed from what you have right there. But I want to rewind real quick and talk about how we dealt with the program. So we've did multiple projects through this passion. Anything under $50,000, they go out We meet with them, they build a proposal, and they use RS Means. RS Means is a very complicated way to come up with a proposal. It tells you how much is a 2x4 is gonna cost, the nails, it really breaks it down. So they come with us, they'll get 7 estimates, they'll come back with us, we'll run over the proposal, then we'll put it through. What this prevents is us overly staffing purchasing to have to do what Passion does for us. So a couple success stories is the City Hall building, all the tuck pointing all the way around. The GAR, if you had a chance to go look at the GAR is what it should look like. That was through our job order contracting. I'm trying to think of some other projects. A lot of ADA, we'll get stuff where around the city we don't have a lot of ADA entrances. We put a lot of that through the Passion so we can do it quickly. This year we averaged 35 projects, and we're able to get all of them done because we have this job order contracting. So I guess I wanted to thank everybody for supporting this from the initial, when we set it up, because it's our own Aurora job order contract program. And other cities are using it, so the money comes back to us for doing nothing. So I'll let Ms. Coulter talk about some numbers.
So with the JOC program since 2020, we approved this in September of 2020. The city and other agencies have actually completed about 253 projects, big and small, throughout this program. What's come back to us as of third quarter 2024, we've gotten about $530,000 back to the city. So with this extension, the FH Passion has agreed to increase that percentage up 1. So every project that is between, what is it?
250.
Here it is. So anything that's under $250,000 will actually be increased to 6% back to the city. That is the majority of the work they do for us. These projects are great for Mr. Burchell to be able to actually complete anything from probably under $100,000, really getting those jobs done quickly. If we have to go out to bid, we will require an architect or an engineer to write bid specs, do the drawings, do the requirements. It'll be a formal bid process. It's over $25,000, so that's going to add about 6 weeks to it before it can be done. So they've been a great asset for him to be able to get a lot of projects done quickly. We have a heat exchange unit over at the zoo. We've had different projects going on. They're able to get these done quickly for us. We had windows at Station 8. That was a good project for us without having to go out to bid and create bid specifications to have that done. They're there to do them. They've replaced them. There was an issue with them. They didn't get paid for it until they had to be recent. But they tried to fix them. They had to redo them, right, completely?
Right. What it is a manufacturer defect where these windows opened out. Normal people have the windows open in, as you know. If it's raining, you close your windows. They had them opened out, so there was an internal drainage, without getting long-winded, the manufacturer had to come back and seal it, and it was completed.
So, I mean, everything that Jim does, I think it helps him get some projects done. And we're not talking, generally we'll use them for that $100,000 and under, because that helps him. We're not adding $20,000 worth of cost onto the project, or 6 weeks, or 3 months, so.
And as you know, recently we've took over the maintenance responsibilities for the fire stations, and we're using, instead of adding personnel, we're using the job order contracting, and we're just knocking them out. We can do 10, 11 jobs at one day, so it really helps us out a lot.
And they're done using prevailing wage.
Okay.
Try to use local contractors when possible. And we've put an emphasis on them using MWBE as well. We're working with them on that as well, so.
All right, questions or comments from the committee? Alderman
Yes,
Bug.
thank you. Passion came on board during COVID. We had long and lengthy discussions when this happened. A number of engineering firms and firms contacted me. The way the process took place It was very difficult because it was COVID, so everybody was talking to a screen. At that time, when we brought them on, I basically committed that I would ask for this to go out again when it was up.
Okay.
So I asked that in 2020. And there were a number of things. People asked questions came back. Some people said they didn't get the answers, where some firms got them, others didn't. It was COVID. It was crazy. And looking at the analysis of Passion at the time, and this was one of the contentions of the firms, Passion had worked extensively, and they've done great work. I've met with Passion many times about my concerns. They'd worked extensively in the field, but they had not been an administrator as of that time in 2020. However, on the form, it came back for experience. They were rated the highest in experience over firms that had been administrators before. So there was a lot of question about that. And that's why at that time I said I would ask for this to go back out. Passion's done good work. That's not an issue. That was my request at that time. I'm gonna hold to that request. I'm gonna vote no. I'm going to ask for the documents from 2020, the other documents from 2020 to be uploaded so we could do a full review, and we'll do that because we're at 4:55. We got other things to discuss, and that's what I will request at this time.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? I have a motion by Alderman Warman, second by Alderman Bade. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that passes, this resolution passes 4-1. Thank you.
Thank you
And I
very
will
much.
upload those documents.
All right. Next is 24-0975, resolution authorizing execution of agreement with BRT Outdoor LLC, an Illinois limited liability company, to install digital video display multiple message signs in accordance with the terms and conditions herein set forth that would be available to the city at no charge for its use and benefit in lieu of rent payments.
Good afternoon, Chairman Franco and committee members. Once again, Trevor Dick, Assistant Director in the Mayor's Office of Economic Development. This item is to request approval to enter into an agreement with BRT Outdoor LLC to install digital video display multiple message signs, or in other words, community gateway signs at key locations in the city. The first of which would be a new sign at the Aurora Municipal Airport. The city was approached by BRT to determine our interest in entering into an agreement with them. BRT has done similar agreements with 15 other municipalities in the Chicagoland area, including nearby Bolingbrook and Romeoville. BRT's intent is to provide the city new gateway signs at no cost to Aurora, while also providing the city free community messages on the digital screens. In return for their capital investment and use of the community message board, BRT's plan is to seek out private advertising dollars for the digital screen rotations. City staff has worked very hard with BRT on an acceptable sign design, and the recommended designs are included in your packet. It's worth noting that the Aurora Municipal Airport sign is very unique. Also in your packet, you'll see a more typical traditional type sign, which is much smaller than what is being proposed at the airport, but we'll see that in a couple minutes here, just a second. City staff has worked with BRT on an acceptable sign design. Some key points in the proposed agreement include the following. The city shall have the right at no cost to lease one of every 8 of the positions on the display for city content. BRT has agreed to work with Aurora nonprofits for reduced messaging rates. A full list of prohibited uses is outlined in the agreement. We can talk about that further if there's any questions. And BRT agrees to pay prevailing wages on all construction and maintenance. Now I'd like to turn over to Bill, a representative from BRT's Community Digital Display Division, who has a very brief presentation that includes an overview of their company as well as some renderings of what's being proposed. Bill?
Thank you, Trevor.
So before you start, thank you for your patience. It's been a longer than normal meeting, and if I could have put you at the beginning, I didn't even think about that. I would have got you out of here as quick as I can. But still, thank you for being here still.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm Bill Shabilsky with my partner, Todd Sanders. We will keep this brief. Trevor did a great job of explaining probably half the things that we wanted to talk about, but why don't we just start out with a brief video, and then we'll just kind of go into the program itself. So if I
Signs guide us, inform us, and welcome us. Along the roadways of our lives, they stand as beacons. The wooden sign at Aurora Airport has long been a familiar sight, a symbol of our shared journey. But as times change, so must we. Now a new chapter unfolds with our cutting-edge digital display. It does more than just mark a location. It tells a story, our story, in vivid color and clarity. Aurora Airport, where every sign points to a brighter future.
Okay. I'm Bill. I'm Todd. My partner Todd. We have been doing this for some time. Collectively, we have over 55 years of outdoor advertising experience, working with municipalities. We're very passionate in what we do. We have fun. Like Trevor said, we operate in over 15 different towns, and we have a good working relationship with city staff, and because we're very passionate in what we do, and we partner with the municipality. So on a day-to-day basis, we are interacting with them. We follow state and federal regulations for IDOT. Some of the routes that we have our signs on are on routes that are administered for outdoor advertising, so we have to meet all the criteria for such. Lighting is a big concern. Digital signs, these things blink, these things flash. Our signs do not blink, they don't flash, they're static. They are continuously regulated throughout 24/7. They're monitored 24/7, which is nice, third party. So we have eyes and ears, on them at all times. So we meet the visibility triangle, so we make sure that whenever we do put in a sign, it's not going to block or interfere with any type of traffic. So that's our next slide. So we are actively involved locally and nationally. So we are members of GeoPath. And GeoPath is very similar to Arbitron's Nielsen. So all our signs are rated. So they say, hey, you could see it for 15 seconds or 20 seconds, or no, you can't see it because there's a bunch of trees in front of it. So GeoPath is one of the companies that we work with that actually look at our signs and give us ratings of how they look. Mm-hmm. Outdoor Advertising Association of America, that's a national trade organization, which we've been members for a long time. And we're also members of the Illinois Association, in which Todd is a former two-time president?
Yes.
Yeah, two-time president. So we are very active in the outdoor advertising industry overall. And then we're also part of the independent operators. If there's any questions, please just stop me and we could go from there. As Trevor said, we have year-round promotions for community events. I mean, it's unlimited as to what the city could promote on the sign. We have some municipalities that are very aggressive, and they load up their calendars for 2 years ahead of time to make sure that they touch on every single event. And we work very closely with non-for-profits. I mean, we understand the importance of non-for-profits in the community, and we know that limited budgets and whatnot, so we give them preferred pricing. I personally have Boy Scouts, so we don't have much money, so you have to do, prorations of pricing and whatnot, but we really work with people to make it affordable. Some of the other organizations that, civic, community arts, library, school districts, separate entities, park districts, county agencies that are separate from the city, which we, group them into the non-for-profit. Benefit to the businesses. We're just another, we're giving another opportunity for the mom and pops. Not all mom and pops want to, advertise on the internet or whatnot. So this is another avenue for them to actually, show their product or their branding, whatnot, which is important. Some folks are very, they're intimidated, but we make the process fairly easy because we want to make sure that they're successful. We're not successful if they're not successful, so we work very, very closely. Actually, Todd does. But the Chamber of Commerce is a huge advocate for us because they are the ears and eyes of the business and industry. So we work very, very closely with the local chambers. Obviously, with the Aurora businesses, it's going to show increase of revenue, sales revenue as well, and give the businesses of Aurora the exclusivity of the possibility of advertising. Benefits to the city. There's quite a few of them. We are limiting all the advertising to Aurora businesses and national advertisers, which is somewhat unique. As Trevor alluded, we've worked with city staff to establish a good-looking sign that is not a cookie cutter, that's going to be tailored to the longevity of the city. So the city monument, backlit, make it look nice. As Trevor also said, that the city would receive a slot every, a 10-second slot. God bless you. And in reference to the Aurora airport sign, since it would be double-faced, there's two faces, so the exposure is, a little under 2,000 slots on a 24-hour basis, since the signs run 24 hours. All the construction, maintenance, ongoing, everything is in accordance with the Prevailing Wage Act. The majority of our contractors are union, and the ones that are not are certified. Our landscape architect has a prevailing wage. Getting into we do have a landscape architect that helps design with city staff, so year-round plannings, hardscapes, landscape, with make sure it looks good, just creating really nice curb appeal. So this is very important because with all the announcements going on, with storms and whatnot, we have the ability to time into signs any point in time, whether it be a water main break or if there's a restructuring of anything relating to the city services that we could get out the immediate announcement. That's going to help the flow of traffic and everything else from an emergency standpoint and whatnot. All the designs are included, so we work with city staff. Like I said before, we like to get things loaded up for maybe 6 months to a year, so we're not waiting till the last minute. And so we work to get everything loaded up in the system, and if there's any modification or changes, art design, we handle everything full turnkey. So there's no cost associated with changing a design. We have a graphic artist that works with us exclusively, so they make the necessary changes as necessary. Increased exposure to local businesses will increase local revenue. That's pretty self-explanatory. And all the sites that are developed are at no cost to the city. That's the design of the airport sign, and is illustrated in the video. It's a double-face sign. The overall height, 30 feet, pending FAA approval, because we would need FAA approval there. The digital faces would be 9 feet going north to south, 18 feet going east to west. We like to have a 2-to-1 ratio. So it just gives a little bit of the schematic from, oh, I didn't do that. Okay, I did. This is the westbound face heading eastbound there. Obviously, we removed the old wood sign for the illustration.
Good.
That is a night rendering. So the digital face, as I said, is continuously dimmed for ambient light, everything. So it would never exceed 300 lumens. And I know that's a big complaint when it comes to anything, you know, flashing movement.
Sure.
No distractions at all, none. As you can see that the seal is illuminated with the airplane. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a little. So that is, I'm all thumbs. So this is the west face going eastbound. So that would be your right-hand read, okay?
Is that that would be going westbound, I believe.
It is, yeah, westbound.
So this is your right-hand read, so this would be going westbound?
Well, because the airport's typically, yeah, that would,
Or
yes, yeah.
as the crow flies, you know, in,
Yes, yeah.
yes. There's your night rendering. Just to illustrate what it would look like. And this is minus any type of landscaping because it is relatively a low sign. So you really wouldn't want to landscape something you don't want to block. Right. So we are more than glad to entertain any type of landscaping packages that would look, you know, nice around the sign itself. Any questions?
Questions or comments from the committee? Well, signs look great. I think in the digital age, we probably should come into the 21st century at some point in time. So this looks really good, and really happy to have it. Puts us back on the map a little bit. So no other questions or comments? We have a motion approved by Alderwoman Bay, second by Alderman Tolliver. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that passes 5-0. Thank you. And again, thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you.
And the next item on here is 24-0960, carryover of aldermanic initiative funds. Patrick, you're gonna be talking to this?
I believe
Both of you?
gang's all here.
All right, that's all right, whoever.
Chris, do you want to just go over the summary parts that you had from Rick?
Sure. I can actually go through a little bit of the background related to the ward funds and kind of the history of how we've utilized and applied the items that have happened over the last couple of years, and then we
Mr.
can
Minnick?
move forward from there.
Excuse me, just 1 second. For the benefit of the committee, we re-uploaded the actual ordinance during the meeting.
Okay.
So if you refresh, the ordinance is now also an attachment. We just did it during the meeting, so you may not have realized that document is there.
Okay, excellent. Last year, as the committee's well aware, we had some extensive discussions about ward funds and how to apply them and how to utilize them going forward. And that process culminated in the passage of an ordinance that I believe Alderman Bugg just referred to, that essentially codified the use under Section 2-65 of the city's municipal code. And essentially, there were a couple of buckets that were created. Actually, they had already been created, but they were affirmed, I guess, through that process in terms of capital and non-capital funds moving forward. The issue arose that during that the ordinance that codified these practices was not passed until January of 2024. And what had happened is that in December of 2023, we had actually already approved the 2024 budget and applied some of the prior practices, which were not codified, by the way, and guidelines and policies into the 2024 budget. So essentially what that led to was a little bit of an issue with 2024 being a transition year between the prior practices that were a little less structured and the much more structured and codified process that was advanced during the meetings in January. So what that actually led to was the fact that prior to 2024 in the codification, the city had carried forward ward funds for both capital and non-capital items and had moved them forward over time. Aldermen as a practice, or at least some of the aldermen, had a practice of budgeting some of the prior allocations into the current year's expenditures so that they could hopefully spend down those funds that had accumulated over some time. During 2024, we are now coming to the end of that year, and we have to decide exactly what we're going to do with these funds and how we're going to allocate moving forward. Given the new codifications and the new requirements of the ordinance that was passed back in January. So what staff is essentially proposing to do is to take a look at those balances as they will exist at December 31st of 2024, and any unspent funds for either capital or non-capital purposes would be essentially transferred into the appropriate ward funds capital bucket as of essentially January 1st of 2025. So in essence, the funds that are there and that are available today would not be lost in any way, but they would be utilized in the capital bucket or the capital funding allocation as it's called out in the ordinance as of December 31st of 2024. Then moving forward into 2025, we would, I guess, fully implement the requirements of Section 2-65. In essence, there would be a $25,000, or will be, and this is budgeted, a $25,000 non-capital allocation and a $50,000 capital allocation. Aldermen will be free to utilize those in accordance with those funding allocations in accordance with the requirements of the ordinance. And once we get to 12/31 of 25, there would be two different treatments of the aldermanic funds. Number one, for any non-capital items or any non-capital funding allocation that is remaining as of 12/31, those funds would actually be forfeited unless they were encumbered for specific projects and actually transferred to the capital funds. Any unspent capital funds as of 12/31/25 will carry forward into the new year in the capital bucket. So they would need to be utilized and expended for capital projects. So in essence, what we're saying is there would be no ability to move forward and rebudget non-capital items on an ongoing basis. So that is what we had talked about in terms of allocating the funds and making sure that we follow the dictates as passed in Section 2-65. And with that, I don't know if Patrick has anything to add related.
Not so much to add to that, I just kind of wanted to see the committee's position on how they want to do in order to move this forward. So depending on that, will be mostly.
Right, so let's go over some concerns I guess we've had. And I think you answered a couple of them, because we talked today earlier, and it was a concern about people losing money. So you've kind of addressed it. So in any money we have today, you get carried over, but it carries over in your capital bucket, all right?
Correct.
2025, your non-capital bucket, if you don't spend it, you lose it unless you put it into the capital bucket.
Correct.
Now, what they would like us to do, and we know we need to do this because history and the math will tell us, we gotta start spending our money, so we have to talk to whoever we need to talk to for our capital projects, if we don't come up with it ourselves, to figure out how we can start spending the money. So we can have a plan that can be executed next year or 2 or 3 years. We just need to have a plan, and we go along with it for that purpose. If by chance, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And please keep in mind that in Section 2-65, you always have the option to, and we were talking specifically about non-capital funds, you always have the option to transfer funds that are remaining in your non-capital funding allocation. You can encumber those funds for future capital projects and transfer them to your capital fund on an annual basis. So you always have the ability, if you can identify future projects, so that you would not actually lose those non-capital funds, but you would need to utilize them for capital expenditures moving
Right.
forward.
Now, there was another concern, and if you look at one of the attachments here, which basically says capital ward enhancements, and it's A, B, C, D. If you look at the bottom where it says A, which actually goes along with capital, it tells you what some of the capital projects are, because, you know, we thought that the wording on capital didn't encompass a lot, but actually it does. You know, they talk about road resurfacing, trees, landscaping, those are all capital projects, as are street lighting, cost of land. So there was concern about the cost of land not being capital, park improvements, curb, pathways, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a lot more in the capital that I had thought, which is good. The other thing is, too, we have the option, for example, if there's an alderman or alderwoman that wants to give money to another government entity that's in their ward to help them out, and they're going to construct something, even if it wasn't covered under the capital line items, you could always come to finance, and the finance committee could say, yes, you can take your money from capital. If we don't look at it as capital, we don't know, even if it's a gray area, bring it to non-capital to spend on that project. The finance committee approves it. So there's always that vehicle there for those gray area things. My contention is when you have something that has any kind of permanence to it, anything that you deal with permanence, I would be shocked if the finance committee wouldn't say, yes, you can bring it from the non-capital because it's not technically in there, or from the capital, put it in the non-capital for expenditures. I just would be shocked if there was anything like that. So, for example, if you want to do that thing there, they're actually building something. If we didn't say, well, it's not under capital, we're going to say, yeah, but it really is capital. So you could take that money and bring it back. So I don't really feel right now there's any urgency to change, as long as we understand that the movement can happen. And even if it's going to be tough, bring it to the finance committee, and we're probably going to approve it. Now, what I would say, too, and I'm going to give an illustration, it might be extreme, we would probably do something like you're talking about. That's an easy one. If somebody says, I want to take non-capital money and move it to non-capital, buy 50 hot dogs or 500 hot dogs, probably not. Unless you're going to build a house out of hot dogs. That would be a permanent structure. But other than that, you know, these things are probably going to go. So I don't really see a problem. Now, what we could do later on, and this would be the RAP committee's responsibility, if they want to add more things under capital as a definition, to keep it away from going to finance, that's a great thing to do too. So it keep people from having to go to finance for something we know we're going to approve anyway, just throw it under the capital thing. So we can always do that at any time during the year. So we could expand the definition. So I think what I'm trying to get is the concerns that we have, which may have been legitimate, I think we've basically talked them out to know that there's always a pathway to potentially get around reasonable uses of ward funds. That's kind of really what we're talking about. Alderman Buck, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. To move that along, I and many other people are not privy to your discussion with Alderwoman Smith.
Right.
So I don't know the details
Right.
of, I mean, you alluded to something.
Right.
I have no idea what that something is. So I guess we need examples and.
So let me give you, because this is a pretty good one. So Alderman Smith would like to.
I'm not.
All right, so let's just say an alderperson.
The problem is I'm waiting to get dollars and cents added to this before I announce what I'm doing, you know, and we have other aldermen that are doing the same thing. So I need to back off on, I shared with the chairman what I was doing, just to get his opinion, his input, just as a colleague. But at this time and point, he's just using this as an example of what it would
Right.
be. It is another government entity. That's as far as we're going to go with that. But it shouldn't be an expansion of the definition in my mind, and I would certainly be willing to argue that
Well-
when the time came. But we're not discussing my project
Right. So,
today.
for
Thank you.
example, if I wanted to go to let's say West Aurora High School is in my ward. It's just outside. Let's say I want to do that. And they're going to do some major projects in there, and I'm like, hey, I would like to give you some money to make a community center, community space for me to have meetings in. I will give you $100,000 towards that. Well, to me, that's a capital project, but I don't know that it's actually in here. So I want to give a $100,000 donation to build a community thing. It's good for the community, for something in my ward. All right, does that come out of the capital bucket, or does it come out of the other bucket? Now, in my mind, it's a structure, we're building something. Now, we're not building it, but somebody else is, and we're gonna give them money to dedicate to building that community thing in West Aurora School District, in the high school. So that would be a case where, all right, does this committee think that we're not gonna allocate funds for this person to use for that? So, I mean, those are the type of things that I'm talking, things that actually have permanence to it, I think those are easy.
So I understand,
Right.
because when you, in your scenario, actually probably that entity, the school district, would be asking you to sponsor something. So normally sponsorships are community enhancement funds. But what we are sponsoring is the building of a building.
Right.
So I understand where you're going.
Right.
And, yeah.
So I just want to get some clarity that there could be gray areas. Now, we could expand, like, I have no problem with going to the RAP committee and expanding the definitions, but if we didn't expand it, and that was a gray area, does this finance committee really think that we're going to give money to a project, to the scenario I just said, we're going to say no, because it's a project? You know, that's a good use of money. So I think the fear of losing money or not being able to bring money reverse, and I say reverse from capital to non-capital, to get something that makes sense to get done, I think that would be very rare, if at all. And I gave one extreme example, the hot dogs, because that money, capital money, should not be used for parties, but for some kind of infrastructure or permanence in your ward, whether you build it or somebody else builds it, you give them money, I think that's a given. So that's why I talk about things like that.
I would agree with that. So a
Alderman Murphy.
couple 3 points. So I want to understand, and I think I have their answer, is like why giving money to West Aurora is not considered a capital project. Is that because we're giving them money, but we don't actually own the property? It's a capital project to them, but it's not a capital project to us. Is that why it's not considered a capital investment?
Well, I think kind of as Alderman Bug had indicated, it's more at that point, more of a donation than because you, the alderman, are not exactly the contracting entity at that point. But I would also argue that there may be an argument to be made, and I think that would be the purview of the committee, or perhaps RAP, and ultimately the city council, as to whether or not, you know, donations to, especially in Alderman Franco's example, another governmental entity, you know, could be considered a capital project or a capital disbursement for the purposes of the ward funds. I mean, I think there's certainly an argument that certainly the constituents benefited are, you know, certainly similar, if not the same, and there could be a logical argument, but that would need to be, I think, a policy discussion and decision of the appropriate committee plus council.
And then essentially we're just, I don't want to say splitting hairs, but we're just kind of splitting hairs, whether it's capital or non-capital in that particular case. And then number two.
If I may, 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
In the terms of this Aurora School District thing that we're talking about, we would there's different ways to structure how that money would go, whether it would be a donation or do anything else. If they're gonna build something, they're gonna build it, it's X amount of dollars, you're contributing X amount of dollars. Get a bill from them would be my recommendation, that we get a bill from them for the part, and you kind of pay it that way, so it's not a donation, it's specifically tied to a project, but not, it's over here in some kind of account waiting for them to go do it. You can do that in your own ward funds where you'd have them in the carry forward because you'd identified that project, where it's going to be, how it's going to be. Similar, you guys are familiar with the ARPA funds, right? They came, you had them, you had to identify projects you're going to use them at, as the city did. And this is similar to that.
May I ask a question?
Alderman Smith, go ahead.
So to what you just said, using the same scenario, you just called it a donation. So does that donation now become capital or non-capital?
It's not necessarily a donation. They're
But that's what you
with
called it.
in this one. Well, so it was called a donation earlier. That would specifically be your funding their project, partially funding that project.
But the project could be expanded because you're a part of it.
Yes, or it could be new parts to it, or not expanded at all. This is the project, and you want to contribute to it. Would be, correct me if I'm wrong. The funds would have to be identified for that project. They would go. How I would recommend structuring this, they would go and do the project, and then present you with like an invoice for whatever and get reimbursed for it. So then you have an identifiable capital project that was completed that is being contributed to, instead of giving them the money up front where they have it under the hopes that it goes towards that project. If it never happens, where's that money going? Type of thing,
I
where it's-
100% agree.
And then number two, at RAP committee, can we redefine what capital is? I mean, are we allowed to do that, or would we have to come up with a new term and not?
Let me ask
capital
you
versus
That's a
non-capital?
tricky one.
Let me
That
ask-
might
I
be an
don't think-
IRS.
I don't think
That's
that
what I'm
doing
saying.
Type of
anything,
stuff.
the legislative branch, and I'm telling you, this is true, we can do anything we want. So we want to change, we want to put more things under that definition, we can do it if we all agree.
But then,
or the majority.
well,
agree. We
I
can
think
do that.
it has to be generally accepted accounting principles, it
Well, we
has to
wouldn't
meet
do it.
FASB, and there's other things it has to meet. We can't just say, yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying we can't redefine capital, right? I mean, because, and I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking that you can't redefine a word if it already has a meaning, right? So,
I think you may be able to do it in 265, where you're
I would
putting,
agree.
where you're putting examples of
Okay.
capital expenditures, not a definition. That's more of a term of art in the IRS circles that are going to be capital expenditures or capital expenditures. I would highly recommend about not doing that, but in 265, you can put more examples, more
Okay,
things
good.
forward.
But what we could do is we change the title, capital expenditures, to capital and permanent structures, or something
So,
along those
exactly, yes.
lines, and you could add more to that bucket, because in reality, we have to understand what our goal is here. Capital is building, capital is permanence, capital is not parties, it's everything else that actually is a structure that's there. So if we go through another government entity and we give money for them building a structure for community through our funds, it's gotta be in, and one would just think common sense wise it would be in there. Now, we could always bring it back to finance, this group is always gonna approve anything with permanence, but to stay away from that, to expedite things, if we can just add more language to say, all right, if any time there's a permanent structure involved, we're gonna consider it under this bucket, and that would make it easier. And we could do that at any time, because right now we have the vehicle to come to us to grant that if we need to. So there's ways out of it, we just wanna make it
That's what I would encourage with that
streamlined.
language, similar
Right.
to when
Sure.
the scholarship funds, it goes to that
Yes.
committee, they approve them. It'd be the same thing if it was a capital expenditure that you weren't doing on your own as an alderman to a different government entity. There'd be some kind of approval process for that can be.
Yes, Alex, go ahead, sorry.
So you already have in the ordinance a very, pretty clear definition of capital funds. My suggestion, if we're going to, just even to the last conversation we had with Alderman Bug a couple cycles ago, I would suggest you look within the non-capital definition. And so what this additional use that's being discussed, I think could be tweaked within 2B, which is grants for neighborhood or community beautification or for scholarships. So I would suggest keep the capital what it is, because the capital, in my years here, and I think going back to what the original intent was, it was for aldermen to say, I want to use my capital portion for projects that the city would normally do but is limited. So for example, sidewalks, curb and gutter, that type of thing. So keep it tight to that. But then these other neighborhood-related things, you can, and then you have the ability to simply notify the CFO with a memo on your capital stuff and say, I want to do X, I'm planning on doing X, Y, and Z in the next 3 years. Submit that, that gets carried over.
Right.
May I disagree?
Sure, go ahead.
So I am going to disagree with you. I do agree that what we have in there, but I also agree with what our chairman says. We can make some discretional decisions.
100%.
You know,
I agree.
as we move forward, because every ward is different. The needs of the wards are different. You obviously know that. So, a good alderman's going to know and find the needs of the wards and take care of it. It may not be a curb or a gutter or a road. It might be something else needed in that ward, something that would be an enhancement to the ward, but yet a permanent enhancement. So I think we need the discretion, to be able to expand. I'm going to say expand on a definition, not change a definition, but I think we need to be able to put something in there that, give us a little open-endedness for different situations. And then I will shut up, I promise you after this. I came today because there are 12 aldermen. This is something that's very important to all 12 aldermen. And this is something that the people that are not sitting here today are very concerned about, because this is new, as you discussed. It is my suggestion, and I can't do anything but suggest, that this item be brought back to COW next week so that we can discuss this as a group, so that everyone has an input on this, not just the people sitting here. Because there are aldermen that are very concerned about losing their money and none of us have a full understanding of this because it is new. So I believe that this should be brought back to COW for further discussion. If any changes would need to go, the COW would make that determination to where it would go after that.
So I think that's what we were looking for, right? Was for
So
some
I
direction.
would say this though too. There is no need for a change because we do have an out. We are the out. We can make the decisions to grant movement if we feel it that way. What we probably should do in addition, we're always going to have that power. That's good. In addition, changing or adding more definition or more things to the one bucket, whatever the case may be. So we have both going for us. So let's cover as much as we can, and then maybe only once in a while somebody has to come to us because we threw more things that we can get done there. It's just an expedition of the process. So I would say that. So what was the intent of bringing this forward now? Was it to go to COW? I mean, where are we at? Why are we doing this now? I guess it's really the impetus of bringing this up, because we already had it in place. Just reminding us?
The request did not come to me to move forward. I am.
So it's on the Finance Committee agenda for what purpose? I guess is really what I'm asking.
I believe it's on there to clarify that the funds,
Okay.
there have been a lot of different questions, so that the adoption of this policy allows the council's intention for the carryover of the aldermanic funds from 265 to proceed.
Okay, and that's good, because clarity is really kind of what we were looking for, because it's always been a very hard thing to understand. And we did this last January, and now it's kind of time to, deal with it. So it's good that we're talking about this again to get a refresher, if nothing else.
So then kind of the option would be either that you guys would have a motion to approve this attached motion that's in the Legistar, or as Alderman Smith was requesting, you have a motion that the carryover of these aldermanic funds for 2024 thereafter go to the committee of the whole for requesting their advice on it. That would be that motion instead of a motion to approve.
So it says to establish procedures. Do we not have procedures?
Well, they're in 265, but I think the additional one is Alderman Smith was requesting that council of the whole would discuss it.
Well, that's not how this got on the agenda, though. I'm saying if the purpose to get this on the agenda was to establish procedures, we already have procedures. So the clarity part I get. To establish procedures, we already have the procedures, so we're not really establishing them, we're just reiterating them?
Well,
And that's okay. I mean, that's really.
Went over because of the timing of
Right.
when it originally went through, the issue with the 2023 funds and where they were, and the 2024 funds.
Right.
And can we, excuse me, 1 second. I think in the discussions that some people had, I appreciate clarification. That's where we're at. So some people didn't understand what happened with funds before January 1, 2024. Passed. Then we passed it in January. You have 2024 funds, $75,000. What's happening with that? And then January 1, 2025, going forward, that's $75,000. If we could have a chart, because the discussions that took place, people said different things were going to be happening with those funds at different times. And I had my opinion, other people had their opinion, like things were going to be lost, and I said, that's not what we discussed in RAP, that we would lose that, and Alderwoman Smith made some very direct statements, and we put that in there in number 10, but I guess some people didn't understand what was happening with their money. So if we just had a chart of before January 1, 2024, 2024, that $75,000, what's happened to the two buckets, and 2025, what will happen to the buckets going forward. And then I just have one question. December 31, 2024, I myself, I've blown past my $25,000. And I'll deal with that in 2025. However, in 2025, in December 2025, I spent $24,000 of my community enhancement money. And I have up to $1,000 left. And I want to do a project with the school, whatever, of $1,500. Do I not do it, and then I'm sitting there with $1,000 that I lose? Or, well, no, I'd have to be encumbered in capital, not in my enhancement. Or am I able to go forward with Mr. Jacobs and do the $1,500, taking $500 from the next year, and I have expended my full funds. In other words, if you don't do that, everyone is going to lose $100, $200, $250, $500, because, you know, in accounting in December, everyone's going to be running around, how many pennies do I have left? And, you know, am I at my $25,000?
And I'm sorry, the date that you're talking about?
So this would be next December 2025.
Okay.
We're spending capital, spending community enhancement. Community enhancement's capped at $25,000 right now. We'll discuss that later.
Yeah.
So what do we do, you know, December 25th, December 26th, 2025, and I say I have $400 left, I have $500, I have $800 left, or I'm near it, I want to do something, you know, I don't have enough money, do I just not do it and I lose my money? I mean, that'll be a question for all, at least 10, maybe 12 of us.
Yeah, and I think in that particular item, and what the policy that's attached, not the ordinance, but the policy is intended to create a procedure and a policy for requesting the carryover of those particular funds in that instance. So I guess I would say you have a couple of options. Number one, as you mentioned, you could not do anything and let it go away, let the funds expire or lose the funds, essentially. You could encumber them for a capital project and utilize the funds in the capital for capital-related purposes coming into the new year, which I guess in this instance would be 2026. You know, or those I think would be probably the two biggest the two biggest options. But you would also have the right to petition, I would think, your colleagues on the Finance Committee to be able to utilize those funds for the project if it didn't comply with the capital that's defined right now.
If you were approaching the end of the year and you had money left over, you can transfer that into your capital account, and it's not going to go anywhere, and it carries over when it's identified. And then in the new year, you're going to have the additional funds for whatever that project the $1,500 project that you wanted to do.
From the new.
Yeah, so I'm basically cut off from doing the project in December 2020.
Well-
I'm looking at this, what's gonna happen to all 10 of us in December when we're trying to spend our money. And all 10 of us don't wanna come to finance every December and say, I have $450 left. I got a $600 community project. I mean,
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's each alderman. That's a planning thing.
Yeah, you gotta plan it.
We can't babysit everybody. So if you got to take care of that all year long, if you got a project of the year, you better. At some point in time, it has to be responsibility on us to take care and watch our money. So if you have a project you can't do, then you can't do it,
Well,
or you spend your money differently early in the years to have
Yeah.
some money left. I mean,
this
that's
is
really
the
what it
first time, every other time, capital can be carried over. And in the past, we have carried over community enhancement going backwards. Now, going forward, we are not carrying it over. So this is the first time.
It is the first time. However, nobody here is from the office committee who said, basically, you only have $25,000 to spend. People have abused that for years, even though they set it up. The biggest abusers were those on the office committee. So right now, what we're doing is we're putting something in place that's actually going to be executable and adhered to. It was always supposed to be that way. It was always supposed to be, you can't spend $40,000 on a party. We're only giving you $25,000 for that. But people did it anyway. So we all knew that that was probably not what we're supposed to do. This is actually a good idea. Now, if we want to change the amounts and all that kind of stuff, we go through RAP, let them change all that kind of stuff and like that. But at some point in time, we got some problems out there. That was one. The other problem is we got people sitting at $700,000-$800,000 that have no idea what they're going to do with it. So hence, we had to come up with this, this whole thing to get these people to either move and be responsible for their money. All good. Now, there's going to be some growing pains. There's no question. That's kind of why we're here today, to make it so we understand it. But it's still kind of beyond us that if I'm going to be like, I got a couple projects this year, I'm going to actually have to prioritize what I can get done. Can't do everything like I did in the past. Or put in capital, or like I think we should have done a long time ago, and nobody wanted to do it. Take that capital bucket and move more stuff into it. Newsletters and correspondence and mailings. We didn't want to do that. Okay, this is what we're left with. And that's on us because we're the ones that decided on this procedure. So going forward, I just want to make sure everybody understands we have it out right now. We have it out. We can change things as we need to, but I would almost say in addition to the point about putting more things under capital, let's let it ride for a while, see how it works, and we will make changes accordingly a long time. This is the kind of things that we're going to have to nickel and dime over time, say, oh, here's a flaw, let's address it. Oh, here's something good, that's good. And it's going to be a growing pains, but I think what we have now is a piece of an ordinance, rather, that's really pretty good. We just got to make sure we navigate it correctly. And we do have outs. The Finance Committee is always going to be an out for the movement of money. So I really don't think it's a problem. It's more like tweaking the thing and understanding it, kind of like we're doing today, just learning about it. So I would suggest what we do, because this was a good discussion, and I think everybody learned some things today. We take the same blueprint discussion, bring it to COW, let everybody understand, and then we get it all out in the open, because we understand it now a little bit better, but we need our colleagues to understand it too, because they're always going to have concerns. When you don't understand something, you have a concern. So I think going forward, we want to do that. Alderman Bates.
Can you please explain the last statement from the policy document? Because the Finance Department staff generally does not know when an alderperson will expend aldermanic initiative funds. A request to carry over all of the amount unspent in an account will not be honored, and alderperson must specify the amount the alderperson wishes to carry over. So I'll take an example. I have $15,000 remaining, and then if I do not have a plan how I want to encumber, that amount will be gone. If I have a plan to encumber all of it, that will be honored.
For capital projects.
For capital projects.
Correct.
So another thing was grants.
If I could just briefly interrupt.
Yes.
The part that's in quotes, that if you send an email to finance, take all of my money and put it here, that won't be.
That won't be.
I have
Okay.
X amount of dollars that I'm allocating to X project, please allocate it to that.
And-
that's per the spirit of what Chairman Franco said about
So,
spurring people to account for their money.
so I say again, let's take $15,000 remaining, and I say I want to encumber it for 3 different projects. I just specify those projects, sidewalks, lights, or whatever, capital projects, and they will be allocated to those particular buckets. And this amount is from whatever is left over from 75K this year. I don't have to give the plan from January 2024 and before. Is that correct?
I believe that to be correct, yes.
So from January 2024, prior to January 2024, that amount stays whatever, and I can plan capital projects with that.
Yes.
And from this year onwards, whatever is remaining from 75K, I have to give the plan of how I want to encumber for any of the capital projects.
Yes.
Whatever I don't utilize goes to Ward 10 capital, or it goes away, non-capital funds.
Non-capital funds would frankly go away. They would revert back to the gaming fund, I believe, supplies the non-capital funding allocation for the ward funds.
So if there is a grant program for the community enhancement, permanent enhancements, like maybe their sidewalk or whatever, if the community wants, does that come in capital project?
I'm not sure.
Let me jump on that, because I want to talk about it. This is going to be a wrap discussion, because it's more policy and procedure. If you have a grant program that does landscaping, and mine does community enhancements, they're all basically infrastructure, I'm golden, because this is all capital projects. If you got one that does a party,
No, yeah.
I mean,
That's
so
not
right, so
called
but I mean,
party.
so your enhancements, if they're what you would consider, I'm going to use the word permanence again, yeah, that would be excluded. But if you have a grant program that might do that and other things,
Okay.
then those other things, they might have to come to finance, because you can't put the whole grant program in there, because the variety of things you're doing does not meet. But if it's like, if it's an infrastructure or capital improvement grant program, you're good to go, because that's what it is.
So
Well,
currently,
a
whatever.
grant program is actually spelled out in section 2.65 as non-capital.
Right.
So it would be
Non-capital.
ward
So we would,
enhancement.
so that's why
Even
we
though
would
that
have to take a look at
changes
each
capital?
grant program. That's
All
what we'd
right,
have to do.
so you got a timeout on it. There are very specific words in the ordinance of how it works. The grant program is for neighborhood or community beautification, which I don't think would be sidewalks. That would be a capital expenditure.
That'll be capital, right? That's what was my understanding.
A tree would be neighborhood beautification part, right? The sidewalk would not be neighborhood beautification, that would be a capital expenditure.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Well, under this, the trees are under the definition of capital, so it's already in the definition. But, so I'm gonna give you an example, my grant program, I did some sewer work for people who have back up in their backyards, it was all
Yeah.
infrastructure. All right, that's gotta be capital. So that's in a community enhancement, but it's also capital. So that's why that's a really strange thing, those are gonna have to be, I think we're gonna have to look at those. But I think, again, if we change some of the wording, that you can say, oh, your grant program is all permanence, that's excluded. Or your grant program has a variety of things, then let's break it down every time you give out a grant, because the fluff, no, but the infrastructure, yes. So because there is a variety of these things. That's the problem with some of these programs. There's a lot of different things, and you have to break it
So,
down. But
I-
you don't want to give a grant program not the ability to keep the money in there if you're doing infrastructure or capital, which could be under the umbrella of the grant program. So we're going to have to probably dissect into that a little bit too. But again, everybody needs to know that no matter, until we make our little tweaks, this body can come in and use some common sense to move things along. We have that ability. So that's a good thing in the meantime, to have that Band-Aid in case we need it.
We have
It just
all of
is.
2025 to fix.
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Just to add to that, so if I have 15,000 remaining, I can create a grant program for facade and save it as a capital project for next year. Improvement, facade improvement, it's permanent.
The grant program would have to be approved first and
Yeah,
then funded, yeah.
I
Right, yes,
understand
right,
that,
right.
yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say, which was very confusing, right now, whatever I want to carry forward for next year as capital, this is not the form that we have to fill. Because this says department head, division head, these people have to sign. And impact of denial of carryover request, that means somebody's approving it. So, I don't know, this was sent to me, so I don't know. Is this the form, or are we just sending an email to Chris Minnick saying that these are the things that I want to save my money for?
May I, Chairman?
Alderwoman Smith, go ahead.
We need I know, don't you like that I asked? We need a form created for just aldermen. We're not a department of the city. so
I've
we
never
need
seen that form. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know what
need
it
a
is. I don't
separate
know if
form
it's-
created for our carryover specific to us as we move forward, because I know what she's looking at. We were told this needed to be filled out, but yet we were really never given to us. So that shouldn't be used for aldermen. We need our own form that's going to work just for us. And I'm going to say this again, all 12 people need to be having this conversation, because we're going to have the same conversation again next Tuesday.
All right,
I
so
agree.
we've been here for almost 3 hours.
make
What
a
I would
motion.
suggest
Chairman?
is that we take this to COW, because there's going to be probably a continuation of our discussion, but the other people need to chime in too. We need to educate them, because once they hear what we hear today, there'll be some questions coming out of them that maybe we didn't think of, because, now they're well-versed. And we're going through a lot of scenarios. But I feel pretty good that no matter what we do, we always have the final say on how to execute any individual concern. In the meantime, we go through RAP, maybe clean things up a little bit, make things a little bit cleaner and to expedite the process. But I think right now, we're pretty good to go forward, as long as we continue to educate the whole committee on what we're trying to do. So I would suggest we just hold this in COW. Let's go from there, and then if we need to bring it to RAP after we have discussion at COW, we'll have a better idea, and then we can make whatever changes coming out of there, or we can actually say, give us a couple months, because we still have this out. This is the beauty, we have this out no matter what, and then maybe we think about it a little bit longer. So I don't think we need to go through it there, because this year is taken care of anyway, we're good. When we go to 2025 to 26, that'll be the concern problem.
Chairman, the required form to be filled out by tomorrow needs to be eliminated until this process is completed.
I agree.
Well, who said that we need to have this form filled out by
I
tomorrow?
believe it came from legal.
The date was revised, actually, to January 9th, so there will be
okay,
additional
yeah.
time.
Okay.
There was a discussion about how short that time frame was.
Then we need a
So
motion
do we
to
need to make a motion to
take this to
take this to
COW.
COW?
I believe the motion would be, from what I'm understanding, the directive is that you want to, so this matter, you're going to refer the carryover of the aldermanic funds for your fiscal year 2024 and thereafter to the committee of a whole and request its advice.
Correct.
Well stated.
Chairman, can we request the process of sending how we want to encumber by, like if we have that document by,
When we talk process, so here's the problem, when we talk process, it really should be RAP. We're basically executing the financial portions of what RAP tells us to do. So I think when we talk process, we probably want to do that to RAP. So at the RAP meeting on Tuesday,
If you
we can
can
have a
have-
discussion item about that, and then take this part of it, talk about this at COW, so we can kind of wrap it into the two a little bit, and try to get everything done by the first of the year, or January 9th, whatever that date is for this. So based on what you said, do I need to repeat that?
I can, if you would like.
You want, you, oh,
Second.
no, you can,
I'm
I'm
not
making
saying-
the
I'll
motion
said.
whatever
Do
you
I
say
need to
right
repeat it? Or what you said, good.
Second.
So all right, so is there a motion to be made on what Patrick just mentioned?
I'll make the motion on that.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And just
Okay,
for
Sue?
clarity, that motion is to refer the aldermanic funds for the fiscal year 2024 and thereafter to the committee of the whole and request their advice upon.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. With that, I feel we have nothing more to go. We have a motion to adjourn by Alderman
Second.
Bug, second by Alderman everybody. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This motion is adjourned at 5:58.
Alderman Smith, this has been our regular thing for last 3 months.